Chapter 51. The New King. Vegeta didn't stop even when Nappa yelled at him to, even when he was putting himself in the blast's range. For he couldn't stop now, because if he did, that would mean he was always played for a fool by Raditz. He was the real clown. That legend was always besides him, listening to him dream about becoming Super Saiyan one day, all the while knowing he had no chance. I will not stand for this. With a final growl, Vegeta detonated his Gallic gun on Raditz's chest, his hands keeping it pressed on the white armor. Gallic gun. Boom. A purple hemisphere of energy overtook the duo, leaving the audience aghast. Vegeta was putting his entire strength behind it. This was the planet-busting attack he did in canon. Just this time around only Raditz was tanking the blunt of the whole attack. Raditz. This short villain. He is so awful. Launch exclaimed with her hands on her mouth. Pai and Bulma, who were sitting beside her, looked royally pissed too. Digging her naturally sharp nails on the titanium chair she was sitting on, Pai slapped her tail on the ground angrily. Crack. Causing cracks to form on the floor, Bulma looked upset too, but she looked at Pai with a stare. Hey, keep it down, you will wake those two up, said Bulma with a grumpy tone. Pai gave a startled look at that and looked back, watching two babies lying fast asleep on the bed. One had a mermaid tail and the other boy had a monkey one, with that one special trait of Raditz's family on him. The messy hairstyle Bardock, Goku, and Goten all seemed to inherit. This strong genetic line was once again seen in all its glory within this boy. Looking back herself, Launch waved at the two and laughed in a silly voice, and from the looks of her dazed eyes gaining clarity, she seems to have somehow confirmed Raditz's safety. Hey, Raditz is safe. I just checked the other world. He isn't there yet. As both women sighed with relief, Launch walked up to both the kids and poked the boy she brought into this world on the cheek. Such a cute boy, who knew the night she shared with Raditz that day would result in this. Even Raditz didn't know. She only got to know this after she left for the other world, and then couldn't return until a week ago, missing Raditz all that time. Stupid otherworld rules, stupid Earth's main magician rules. Hee hee, and you don't have to worry about these two. Little Bardock is a heavy sleeper. He won't make a noise even when he was just born in Otherworld. I was afraid something was wrong, but then Baba told me what really happened. Guess he just wanted to see Raditz again. The last line was said in a mumbling voice by Launch, and she also knew why the other baby came over just as quickly from Pai. These two might be normal babies right now, but it's because they have been cleansed and reincarnated. It was a Majin Buu and Ub situation, but Launch didn't tell anyone else. She will only tell it to Raditz personally later. Boom asterisk. The women's talks were cut short by the loud crashing noise the TV emitted. Looking back at it, they saw something amazing. Boom, boom, boom. In the battlefield, Raditz was rushing like a bull. His hands clenched around Vegeta's face and his armor was still as spotless as ever. Aya! Vegeta screamed into his mouth as he was being dragged through row after row of buildings, with his head acting like the demolisher. Raditz was using Vegeta's entire body to dig into the hard concrete and metal structure, and he just kept pushing, making a large cave-in wherever he went. Finishing the entire row of buildings, Raditz looked down at the bloody Vegeta hanging limp. Clench. Crack. Clenching his hand, grabbing Vegeta's face, which cracked Vegeta's teeth from the sound of it. Raditz finally picked up the limp prince and brought him to his face. Vegeta. Always the sore loser, aren't you? I told you, didn't I? You can't defeat me. I might even be as strong as Frieza now, and I am still growing. I will keep growing every minute and every second. This is the reality, Vegeta. Accept defeat, so I can end this farce. Although Raditz did tell the Vegeta this, he was nowhere close to Frieza, even the first form, much less the final, at least right now. He was currently stuck, unless he wants to push more and turn into Ozaru, losing the natural case of Ki trapping his Saiyan body provides with Ikari. I can possibly do what Broly did and cut my tail, losing the ability to become Ozaru. But Broly had special circumstances. He was going Ozaru since forever, and had many tail regrowth phases as a child. But I can't train like that anymore. I have reached the age where I can't regrow my tail if cut, just like Vegeta, so if I try that, I might lose Ikari altogether. Considering that possibility, Raditz decided against cutting off his tail for a shot at the complete Ikari, or mortal god form as he liked to call it. Ikari had way too much potential. Broly was losing to Super Saiyan Vegeta in base, then as soon as he used Ikari, it kept him going until he was beating them as gods, but that's where he peaked. Blue Goku could once again defeat him, because that was as strong as Ikari could make him. This was the entire reason Frieza was upset Broly couldn't go Super Saiyan. He was losing to Blue Goku. If this was the old Broly, he would have just kept getting stronger with no limits whatsoever. But the canon Broly had clear logical limits. For more power, he had to transform into Ikari and Super Saiyan respectively. But that's the best part. These forms aren't specific to Broly. Unlike his green-haired form, everything else is something I can replicate. Just when Raditz was thinking about his future power-ups and how he could go on to defeat Frieza, the broken Saiyan Prince suddenly coughed. Ha ha ha. Vegeta's panting sound brought Raditz out of his thoughts. He remembered. He had dropped the prince to the ground a while ago. Damn it, said Vegeta with hate. From down here, all he could see was Raditz's feet. He, the prince of all Saiyans, was lying at the feet of another. But Vegeta couldn't even gain enough energy to stand up anymore. His previous Gallic gun had hurt him more than it did Raditz, and the next beatdown he just received. Damn it! Damn it! Vegeta banged on the broken pavement, looking up at Raditz with a face that almost looked to be crying, from pain or from his pride getting shattered. That was something only Vegeta knew. And Raditz too. He also knew. You lie. It cannot be. I was supposed to become Super Saiyan. I am a super elite. You are just a low-class Saiyan, how? How are you the one of the legend? It should have been me. Prince Vegeta. Vegeta hit his head on the floor, with clear tears now streaming down his face. Raditz gave him a hard look. Because he knew Vegeta wept majorly because he felt as if Raditz always knew but treated him like a joke. His pride was hurt more than anything. As for remorse, that wasn't something the Saiyan Prince was capable of feeling currently. Low class? Don't kid yourself, Vegeta. My father was Bardock. I am sure you have heard of him, didn't you? Everyone did. He was a low-class warrior who rose through the ranks all on his own. Smirking haughtily, Raditz continued. And I am his son, Raditz. Wasn't this the entire reason a low-class like me was taken into your elite squad? The real reason for this might have been Dragonballs doing their thing somehow through Bardock's status, making sure Raditz could survive the Planet Buster. Or it could really be Bardock's potential that spurred the king to put his son, Raditz, into a team with Vegeta. Whatever it was, that was all because of Bardock in the end. Bardock. Bang. With a sudden kick to the chest, Raditz knocked Vegeta out. Vegeta was once again about to go on about how everything was a lucky coincidence, how he will never stop being the Saiyan Prince. And Raditz had given up on trying to convince the guy. To hell with it. He'll just send Vegeta back to Frieza Force or something. He can handle it from there. Nappa announced the results. From a shocked face to a large smile is what Nappa went through. Laughing with relief, Nappa rushed towards Raditz and fell on the floor with a bow. My king, Nappa is at your service. A smile of real relief was constantly on Nappa's face. Not only did he survive, he also knew the legendary Saiyan was always with them. And betraying the guy himself. What absolute honor. He had no qualms serving the new Saiyan King, especially seeing how he refused to kill Vegeta, just because he was one of his own. Frieza, just you wait. The legend you feared has come true. With these words, Nappa looked up to ingrain the kingly image of Raditz in his mind. Perhaps his appearance resembling a royal garb was not a coincidence, but his plan all along. Chapter 52, Clothes Beam. The touching scene of Nappa pledging his alliance to Raditz was rudely interrupted by a gruff voice. What is the meaning of this? Why aren't you finishing him off? Piccolo's words cut the atmosphere like knife, his eyes starting at Vegeta's unconscious body, and the rest of the Z fighters seemed to be unsure about this too, but they weren't direct like Piccolo. They trusted Raditz enough to not do something like that. Gohan also seemed as if he wanted to say something to Piccolo, but Piccolo's hard look stopped him from doing that. Grr. Looking towards the Namekian, Nappa growled. This guy dared to sully this scared moment. King, let me go. I'll teach this guy a lesson. Nappa's angry words didn't cause Piccolo to flinch. He was not that weak compared to base Nappa. But Raditz wasn't too upset about the entire thing. This was Piccolo. Even Krillin wanted to kill Vegeta in canon. Their current unsure state was entirely due to him being here. Just like when Goku asked Krillin to let Vegeta go, they believed him enough to do that. No need, Nappa. I understand what they are worried about. Looking at Piccolo's tense body, Raditz smirked. No need to be so tense, Namekian. Whoosh. Bang. Piccolo's eyes bulged as Raditz appeared before him, and immediately kneed him in the stomach. Cough. Ag. Collapsing to the ground, Piccolo's eyes were bloodshot, his hands holding his stomach. The Z fighters were also incredibly shocked by this sudden attack, but Piccolo wasn't one of them quite yet, so they didn't attack Raditz. But Gohan, he immediately ran towards Piccolo with tears threatening to spill, but he didn't cry. Don't hurt Mr. Piccolo, Gohan said with a flash of belief. He was still very much scared, but almost losing Piccolo was such a shock to him that he was now consciously attempting to get over his fear. Raditz meanwhile looked at the collapsed Piccolo and grinned at Gohan. Beat it, kid. This is payback. He collapsed my chest. I collapsed all of him. Now get up and talk. Don't make me look down on you, Namekian. Gohan held his hands before Piccolo and looked at Raditz angrily. No, you can't hurt Mr. Piccolo dash. Stop it, Gohan. Cough. Piccolo pulled Gohan back and gazed at Raditz with serious eyes. While Gohan was confused, no one else was. This was a thing warriors understood. Piccolo was wary of Raditz because of his previous position and was thus questioning him with a malicious angle. But with this attack, our feud is over. Is that what you want to say? After attempting to get up, Piccolo stood shakily, but he wasn't giving an angry look anymore. Because instead of false words and fancy promises, this was what he preferred. This was a language he understood well enough. Raditz showed he could kill him any second but chooses not to, and he took the initiative to end their conflict. This was more than enough good faith for Piccolo. After steadying himself, Piccolo breathed out and his white cape materialized on him. Clothes beam. I want it. I so want it. Raditz smiled internally and went ahead with a friendly smile towards Piccolo. With a smirk, Raditz towered over Piccolo and hugged from the side, his left hand grabbing a hold of him and his right was grabbing Piccolo's head. You. The angry Piccolo looked at Raditz with fire in his eyes. If the previous action was Raditz saying they were cool, this action was him asserting his dominance, and worst of all, Piccolo couldn't move at all after Raditz grabbed onto him. Haha, Namekian, I'm glad we could solve our differences. It's a happy day today. Don't be so hard-faced. Tell you what, I'll call you Piccolo, let's be friends. Ha ha ha. Growling with his teeth out, Piccolo snapped at Raditz, but his action seemed funny because he was still trapped by Raditz in a friendly hug. Release me. I have no interest in being friends with you. But Piccolo's yell was only met with suppressed laughter of the Z fighters. Even Gohan was smiling, which turned Piccolo's face red with shame. Once again boisterously laughing, Raditz finally released Piccolo. He had already copied what he wanted to do. Hey, your loss. You could have been friends with the king. I might have even taken you to visit Namek, your home planet. Narrowing his eyes, Piccolo scowled. He wasn't happy being shown his place just now, and he will definitely get back at him. Raditz and Goku are two of the obstacles he needed to clear before he takes over the world. Although he was still thinking that, somewhere down in his heart, he knew this wasn't his goal anymore. Gohan had affected him more than he will ever admit. But enough about that. Raditz had been dodging the question for a while now. Piccolo won't let that happen. I'll see about Namek myself. Now tell me, what are you planning on doing with that guy? Getting a serious look to himself, Raditz spoke silently. He's a threat. The moment he gets stronger, he will return to kill us all. But, even with all his shortcomings, Vegeta has his Saiyan pride. He lost the royal duel. He will honor it, even if he hates it. Shrugging his shoulders as he turned to look at Vegeta's unconscious body being carried by Nappa, he said again, before he proves himself to be stronger than me, he won't care about anything else. And he can never defeat me, no matter what. Silently catching Raditz's confident words, Piccolo lightly snorted. Picking up Gohan, he turned around and began leaving. If he comes back, it's your problem. Whoosh. Immediately Piccolo flew away with the waving Gohan in tow, who seems to have realized Raditz isn't a bad guy anymore. He couldn't be. He let Mr. Piccolo and his partners go, and he was his uncle too. Snorting with amusement, Raditz gestured to Nappa. Send him to Frieza Base 141. They always have extra healing pods available. Nodding to Raditz, Nappa looked as if he wanted to say something, then made up his mind to say it anyway. King, I think it's in your best interest to eliminate Vegeta. He is not going to stop unless he kills you. Raditz became mum, then sighed. I'll give him one chance. There are too few of us remaining, Nappa. I wouldn't want to kill off an elite. But I understand your concerns. If he returns and wastes this chance, I'll kill him. I don't need a disloyal Saiyans who attack their king. With a smile forming on his face, Nappa saluted Raditz and went to place Vegeta in his space pod. He would leave a voice message to Vegeta's scouter and warn him once. For old time's sake, he hoped Vegeta wouldn't let his pride control him later. Chapter 53, Big Brother. Vegeta was sent back to Frieza Force silently, and the Z fighters were now beginning to acknowledge the after effects of this battle. Broken bones, torn muscles, large wounds, all in all they were beaten pretty badly. You know, you really hit hard, it still hurts. Krillin mumbled, Nappa being the person he was talking to. Nappa himself only smirked. The lot were currently flying towards the lookout, and Nappa was flying just beside Raditz. Turning towards Krillin, Nappa said with a smile full of confidence. What? Want to take revenge? I'll take you on any time. Shaking his hands in a no-no pose, Krillin's sweat dropped. No way. I was just joking. Huh. Nappa laughed at that, but didn't take it further. He could see these guys were associated with his king. The Ginyu Force of King Raditz is what Nappa considered these guys, and he was the Zarbin besides Lord Raditz. I should let King know about this arrangement. It's much better than what King Vegeta had going on during his reign. King Vegeta didn't have as good a governing structure as Frieza does. Frieza might be pure evil, but he is still the ruler of most of the universe. Nappa felt there was a lot to learn from this guy, and he was going to teach it all to Raditz. All in all, Nappa had taken the role of royal advisor by himself. Hey, do you guys feel that? Said Yamcha out of nowhere, bringing Nappa out of his thoughts. He didn't know anything about this sensing business, so he wasn't sure what this guy was saying. But one look at his king told him this guy was not messing around. This sensing stuff was indeed something. The Z fighters all sensed the energy signature coming towards them rapidly and stopped in their tracks. Nappa followed Raditz and did so too. Whoosh! A fast flying orange figure rushed towards the Z fighters and stopped just before them, making a smooth transition from fast to slow, showing his incredible control over himself. Hey guys! A cheerful voice with a natural smile greeted the Z fighters. Goku! You are back, Goku. Too slow, Goku. Brother! That's Kakarot. What happened to your tail? Everyone showed different degrees of emotions. Goku had the ability to incite the best in everyone. His arrival made joy spread, even when the Z fighters were beaten up pretty badly. Goku only rubbed the back on his head with an embarrassed laugh. Sorry, I was crossing the snakeway again. I got here as fast as I could. Man, you guys look beat, said Goku while eyeing Nappa and Raditz, the tail on Nappa being a dead giveaway, and Raditz was someone he looked at with a challenging smile. Huh, King Kai told me you were still alive. Raditz crossed his arms and looked at Goku with a smile of his own. What can I say? You were too weak to take me out, Kakarot. Goku smiled with narrowed eyes, showing signs that he was going into his fun fighting mode. But before Goku and Raditz could duke it out again, Yamcha decided to butt in. No way, he wanted to heal, they can fight later. Goku. Raditz took care of the Saiyans. We tried holding those guys off, but they were too strong. And this guy here is Nappa. He decided to join Raditz. Oh, and Raditz is the Saiyan King now. Krillin also added another thing to the list. And he married Bulma last week too. We were all invited. I'll show you the pictures later. Rubbing his head with a disappointed expression, Goku groaned. Aw, I missed Bulma's wedding. Isn't there cake and food all around in a time like that? Bummer. Nappa twitched his lips. This Kakarot was hit in the head or something. He ignored everything from Saiyan King to a wedding and only focused on the food. Even the most casual Saiyans show respect to the Saiyan King. But Raditz himself happened to laugh at Goku's words. Ha, Kakarot, I'll throw another reception for you. Go bring your family and joy, it's my treat. And don't be so disappointed that you didn't get to fight. You can fight me, anyway, Big Brother has to take his revenge. You almost killed me back then. Grinning a Saiyan grin even when it looked much more playful than prideful on Goku, he said with confidence. We'll see about that, Big Brother. He was accepted by Goku, that much was clear to Raditz. Not only did Goku not stop him from calling him Kakarot, he also called him Big Brother. Maybe it was the free food, or saving the Earth, or maybe it was the promise of a fight. It could even be all of them combined that made Goku see him as a big brother instead of a threat. Whatever it was, Raditz wasn't complaining. He had a future god calling him Big Brother. There's no better honor than that. Excellent, let's get going. These guys are in pretty bad shape. We will have our battle on the lookout. There's plenty of room. Alright, now we're talking. Hey guys, let's go. Goku gestured everyone to keep up and the Z fighters laughed as they began to fly towards the lookout again. Goku was in front, right besides Raditz and Nappa, Raditz being the center of the group as they flew. While making small talk with Goku, Raditz was wondering if he should let Kami reverse whatever he did to Goku's tail to stop it from growing. He'll have to see if Goku was willing to go through with it. He will mention it with Kami later. Chapter 54, Shortcut. The group of Z fighters landed on the lookout. Kami was standing there waiting for them, his back straight and his cane straighter. Smiling with his age wrinkles deepening, Kami spoke. You saved the Earth again. Well done. As Earth's Kami, I thank you. Goku, you are a bit late this time around. Kami's playful remark only made Goku laugh with an embarrassed smile. Putting his hands together, Goku exclaimed. Sorry. I was late on the snakeway. Hey Raditz, let's fight. The abrupt change of topic didn't surprise anyone. This was Goku after all, and he was training for an entire year to fight the Saiyans. He was in full fighting mood right now. It's a surprise he could stop it until now. It might be because the gang was injured, and he wanted them to get help first. Raditz folded his hands and agreed right away. It would be weird if he lives in Dragonball and doesn't fight Goku, and there was also revenge. I don't mind, but first, Kami, I heard you did something to make sure Kakarot doesn't regrow his tail. Can you remove that spell, or whatever you did? After a certain age, Saiyans can no longer regrow tails, but Goku's was sealed or stopped before that. If by chance there is indeed a regrown tail in Goku which was somehow hidden and deactivated by Kami, Goku could have his tail back. But if it's a surgical and magical removal, then Goku's tail might have lost cause. He is beyond the regrowth stage at this point. His tail. Well, I suppose I could remove the spell binding it. I see the Saiyans can control their transformations. Turning to Nappa, Kami said the next word. Would you be helping Goku control his? Kami saw only Nappa do it up though now. He didn't pay attention to Raditz or the tournament. He was too busy training the Z fighters. Before Nappa could answer, Goku did. My tail? Huh, why would I want that back? Snapping at Goku, Nappa said with a berating tone. Kakarot, that's your Saiyan heritage. You can't just cast it away like that. Raditz added from the sides. It makes you stronger. That's a transformation of our species. It's controllable. Think of it as a power boost. You will be able to fight stronger opponents with it. Rubbing his chin, Goku looked confused. Well, I don't know. he said. Goku looked confused at the prospect, and Raditz knew why. He was thinking of what he had done to Grandpa Gohan as a child. He was also wondering if his new sense of balance with a tail will throw him off. He was always having trouble with balance as soon as he lost his tail as a child. It would be the same now if he gained it back. He was too used to not having it anymore. But Nappa didn't know what Goku was thinking. This Kakarot was too disrespectful to King. He might be the King's brother, but the least he could do is agree when the King says something. That's it, pal, fight me. I'll show you what a tail can do for a Saiyan. Nappa's challenge was met with a curious look from Goku, who smiled and accepted it anyway. Nappa looked weak. He could blitz him using one Kaioken, but let's see how much a tail powers him up. Alright, let's do this. With pleasure. Prepare to bite the dust, Kakarot. Nappa's remarks only further excited Goku instead of offending him. Let's see what he got. Kami looked at the two Saiyans rearing to go and gestured the others to back off. Mr. Popo, please heal the others, and Goku, you and Nappa can fight over there. Pointing to the center of the lookout, Kami gave his permission, but Raditz stopped him for a second. Wait a second, Kami, can you restore the moon? Using Powerball while possible weakens the user a bit. Maintaining that thing takes a lot of energy and concentration after all. Nappa without the Powerball could truly show all of his 40,000 power level. Goku will get a fight on par with Vegeta with Nappa alone. Vegeta's great ape in the original was not only the great ape of a hurt Vegeta, it was also using a Powerball simultaneously. He was not at his full capacity when he fought Goku. Kami looked startled for a second, then nodded gravely. I see. I will get it done, sorry. My evil half Piccolo destroyed it a while ago. I didn't get the time to fix it yet. With that said, Kami looked at the sky and sharpened his eyes. He raised his staff and pointed towards the sky. HAA. Kami glowed with a pure white aura, and instantly a see-through shape was starting to appear in the night sky. Raditz looked at the thing with amazement. This was the clothes beam. It's not limited to just clothes. Piccolo made Gohan's sword and sheath using the same technique, and this is similar to what Super Kai used to create that Kachin block. Watching Kami use it to make the moon, Raditz realized something. The creation gods and the destruction gods have the ability to create and the ability to destroy. Shin, Kami and Kami's other half Piccolo are all either nurturing gods or connected to nurturing gods. Their jobs are what comes under creation, even if not directly. This was something Zamasu was told by his master. Then there is the destruction god. We only know one for sure in this universe, Barris, the top dog, and his destruction domain is Hakai. Wait, so can I even use the clothes beam? I haven't tried it. Is this something only gods or their connected can do? Hey, Docent Earth's Kami automatically have God Key then. Wasn't Din sensing Barris? So if I become Earth's Kami, will I simply gain God Key just like that? So that's all I gotta do to become a Super Saiyan god then? Nah, that can't be right, could it? So if Goku way back in Dragon Ball accepted the role of Kami, he would be God right away? Sick. Huff, we are done. Kami's words shook Raditz out of his cranky thoughts. God or something he will ask Kami later. Right now, he wanted to see how Kaioken is done. Goku's best technique, and Raditz knew for a fact he could copy it. If Goku could do it, so can he. The same genetics are at play here. Chapter 55. Goku vs. Nappa. Goku and Nappa were facing each other on the lookout. Goku was jumping up and down, relaxing his body. Nappa also lowered his body to take his specific stance. Then with a smirk he pointed towards his scouter. Let's see what you got, Kakarot. Beep, beep, beep. What? 5,000. Impossible. Growling with light sweat coming from his head, Nappa gazed seriously at Goku, who had a relaxed but focused look to him. But Raditz couldn't watch Nappa start the battle with wrong information. He had to at least let him know what he was up against. So folding his hands, Raditz spoke to Nappa. Nappa, don't be fooled. Kakarot isn't 5,000. He is suppressing himself. He is over 8,000. Sorry, fellas. No over 9,000 joke here, sticking to the canon over 8,000. Widening his eyes, Nappa's mouth opened with shock. What? Over 8,000? How's that possible? Aren't you a low-class dash? No, it makes sense. You are the brother of the Saiyan King Raditz, and he is the legendary Super Saiyan. Letting out a breath, Nappa now removed the overconfidence he had before facing Goku. He was going to take this seriously now. Directly looking at the newly created moon, Nappa focused his mind and began experiencing the primal transformation every Saiyan has. Growl. Goku was shocked and jumped out of the way of the growing Oazru, his eyes widening. So this is what happens. Goku for the first time in his life saw an Oazru. He understood he must have turned into something similar when he killed Grandpa Gohan. And his ki, it's huge. Thought Goku as his blood began pumping. He was getting excited to fight. And if this guy was the weaker one of the two, how strong was the other guy? And how strong was Raditz, who beat him? Even Kaioken times 4 won't cut it, and King Kai told me to not go beyond it too. Guess I just gotta see what I am made of. Sorry, King Kai. Just when Goku was making battle plans, Nappa was done transforming. His red eyes looked at Goku menacingly. "Here I come, Kakarot." A large booming voice echoed and Nappa swiftly flashed towards Goku. Nappa figured Goku was 8,000 plus, so he can finish it off in one strike. But Goku's sudden spike of red aura and the sharp pain he felt on his chin threw his plans out of the window. Staggering back from the kick, Nappa took on a defensive stance. He normally would have raged. But this was the king's brother, who knows what he might have under his sleeve. What was that? That wasn't an attack of 8,000. Nappa asked gruffly, rubbing his chin, which was beginning to hurt less by the second due to the sheer durability of an Oozaru. Goku also cancelled the red aura surrounding him and landed on the ground. He was breathing a lot harder. Even his hands were shaking. He had just used a Kaioken times 3. If someone was counting, they would have found he was over 24,000 for that split second. Man, this is intense. I feel like I have broken my bones. King Kai wasn't kidding, huh? Mumbled Goku, but that smile was on his face anyway, the only difference being that it was a bit painful. Looking at Nappa and grinning with pain, Goku simply told his opponent his technique. He would have more fun that way. I just used Kaioken. It multiples my energy with each use. I am not supposed to go beyond a 2, but I ended up using a 3, but it's still not enough, Goku's words just shook Nappa, a technique which increases power, and by 2 and 3 does he mean 2 or 3 times? So that's why it hurt so much. You just kicked me with over 24,000 power level. But I am 40,000 Kakarot. You can't defeat me if only 3 times hurts you so badly. Grinning a ferocious grin, Nappa attacked immediately. His and Vegeta's Oozaru was trained to near perfection. Nappa, just like Vegeta, was very swift even in his Oozaru form. That was something which took Goku by surprise in his canon fight against Vegeta. Oh crap. Boom. And from the looks of it, it took him by surprise even here. After all, this was against the norm. The big ones were usually slower. Getting up from the cracked tiles, Goku immediately moved out of the way, where the very next second Nappa's Oozaru leg was stepping on. Oh buoy, Kaioken times 3. Bam. Nappa caught Goku's kick this time around and immediately smacked him back. Goku again used a 3 times Kaioken to get out of the way. But he was losing strength very quickly. This was the first time he had used Kaioken in a fight. He was far from the Goku who learnt to use it in short bursts against Frieza. Wow, Goku's getting tossed around, said Krillin, who just came back from getting patched up. The others were still getting their treatment, and he decided to come watch the fight with Raditz. Watching the fight seriously, Raditz also commented, "Brother doesn't have this new technique down yet. If he gets it down, he'll be a force to be reckoned with." Raditz didn't speak much. He was trying to copy the technique by watching. This was something he wanted to do, because even Yamcha could do this. Not everyone he could mind read. People like Frieza aren't possible to just walk up though and copy whatever you want from. So he was developing his key sense to copy techniques by feelings alone. Yeah, that's true. But man, if even Goku is losing to Nappa, we would have been toast without you. Twitching his lips, Raditz didn't comment on Krillin's words. While true, Goku does save the day somehow in the series. And knowing him, he would definitely have thought of something if push comes to shove. Not really, look. Right now he was purposefully avoiding Nappa's tail. It's because he purely wants to fight. He would have gone straight for the tail and kept Kaioken a surprise in a real battle. Taking a deep breath, Raditz touched his chest. I would know. His battle IQ is immense. He takes after father in that regard. Scratching his cheek, Krillin smiled with a nostalgic look. I guess you were right. Goku really does know what to do. And with that, both turned silent. All they wanted to do was watch the massive giant fight a red blur. Goku, Nappa, Raditz, and Krillin. Everyone was having fun with this fight in their own ways. That was how simple the life of warriors was. Chapter 56. Author's Guide to Power Levels. This chapter has been made into a separate video. Its link can be found in the description. Chapter 57. Frieza. A few days passed after Goku and Nappa's battle. This clash once again showed Raditz how good Goku was at fighting, because the man actually managed to fight Oozaru of Nappa to a standstill. Nobody won. But fighting with such a big disparity was something unthinkable for anyone else. Nappa shouldn't even be injured the way he was. Kakarot. Raditz's head turned hearing Nappa's mumbles, and he found Nappa attempting mediation and failing from his anger. Knowing this is no way to continue, Raditz left Android T's torso that he was working on and walked up to Nappa. K-King. Without even needing to be told, Nappa opened his eyes, which made Raditz smile. Nappa could actually sense him now, even though he was constantly getting distracted by his loss against Goku. Nappa was talented, all right. He also had more experience than a lot of people. Knowing that, Raditz was trying to dig out that potential. I expect nothing less from my right-hand man. You managed to get sensing down within 3 days. Excellent. But Nappa, if you want to grow further, you have to learn how to calm down. I can sense there is a way forward for every Saiyan. It won't work with an angry mind. Hanging his head out of shame, Nappa contemplated Raditz's words. He knew Raditz was the legendary Super Saiyan, so his feelings about their potential should be true. But he had a hard time wrapping his head around the concept of Kakarot almost defeating him. He was Oozuru, for God's sake. This shouldn't have happened. It's a shame to lose my first fight as your right-hand man, your majesty. Waving his hand, Raditz sat on the air with his hands folded. Think nothing of it. Brother is a true warrior. His ability to keep thinking in difficult situations is immense. Nodding his head, Nappa sighed. He knew that, but still losing in such a shameful way irked him. But now he won't show his rage any longer. He was also a Saiyan, a natural-born warrior. Instincts to fight was in ever Saiyan's blood. Nappa had them too. I'll defeat Kakarot. This was how Nappa decided to channel his anger. He focused the entirety of it on defeating Goku, and Raditz had no issues with that. Goku had already challenged him multiple times, and Raditz didn't even need to transform to defeat Goku. So Raditz was getting kinda bored of fighting. Goku didn't go through his Namek time training regimen yet. He only was a slightly better than what he was when he left King Kai, but Raditz was constantly growing stronger naturally, his Oazru to base method pushing him along. You do that. Don't let anger distract you any longer. I don't mind you losing, but my right-hand man cannot always keep losing. I understand, King. Giving a royal salute to Raditz, Nappa smiled, but just when he wanted to speak again. Hey brother. Goku's voice broke his flow. Turning towards the sky where Goku was currently falling from, Nappa clenched his teeth. Here comes Kakarot again. Can't he see King is going easy on him because he is King's brother? Nappa was both angry yet somewhat proud that Goku had the courage to come every day even after losing repeatedly. Getting up from the ground, Nappa menacingly walked up to Goku and pointed his finger at his chest. Kakarot, you have some nerve coming to the royal palace every day. You are not to visit unless you are called for. Making a sad face, Goku tried to wiggle his way in like he always did. Don't be like that, Nappa. It'll be fun. Chi-Chi's not there and Gohan is sleeping. I came as soon as he slept. If I am late, he'll wake up. Twitching his lips, Nappa scolded Goku mercilessly. Your mate's just as dumb as you are, Kakarot. Deciding to run off to the city we were attacking with a mountain of books in hand. For your kid to study mid-battle. Seriously, who does that? This planet's army was attacking the place. And you getting bored is not the king's problem. Weren't you going to revive your mate? Get on with it, and leave at once. Wilting like a plant, Goku sighed. But the Dragon Balls won't recharge for an entire year. I was just revived. I have to wait another year to get her back. And that's not fair. Brother is the king. He doesn't mind me coming here. But before Nappa and Goku could argue further, Nappa's scouter beeped to life. Beep, beep, beep. It was a steady, continuous beep, which signified a call rather than a power scan. Widening his eyes, Nappa looked at the person who was calling him and turned to Raditz. King, it's Vegeta. Should I pick it up? This also had Raditz raise his eyebrows. Vegeta's call wasn't something he expected. Giving him a nod, Raditz watched Nappa put the scouter on loudspeaker. Vegeta, Nappa said calmly, to which there was silence from the other side for a few seconds, before Vegeta's voice came through. Nappa, Frieza has found the Dragon Balls, a different set of Dragon Balls than Earth, and he is planning to get immortality with them. What? Nappa almost shrieked. This was such a bad news it wasn't even funny. Both Raditz and Goku also started listening seriously. Raditz knowing this was coming and Goku knowing this was the guy who killed his family and race. Vegeta, not caring about anything else, kept talking in a serious voice. I don't expect a coward like you to stop him, but let him know that the new king, that I am going to Namek to stop him and gain immortality for myself. I'll be coming back for him soon, and when I return, I'll regain my rightful place as ruler. Beep. The communication was cut right after that from Vegeta's side, and silence was palpable in the room. Something which Raditz decided to break. We have to stop Frieza. The moment he gets immortality, he'll be impossible to kill even for me. Frieza will come for us sooner or later. We are Saiyans. He won't let us live. It's better if we take the fight to him when we can. Both Nappa and Goku nodded to Raditz's words. Looks like they'll have to make a trip to outer space soon. After some discussions, Goku went out to call the rest of the Z-Fighters. Raditz went to speak with Bulma and check on the spaceship they were bulleting together. And Nappa meanwhile was thinking about the Dragon Balls and wishes. Maybe he should wish for something if the chance presents itself. Chapter 58. Day before travel. Raditz was relaxing with Bulma on the beach of Kame House. Both were sitting in their swimsuits. Pai Pai was diving down to her old hideout to show Jine what her mother's side home was all about. Sadly, Launch was back to the other world. It's not a job that gives a lot of holidays. The wind was blowing, the seabirds squeaking, everything was relaxed, except for one thing. Are you angry about something, Raditz? Asked a concerned Bulma, to which Raditz shrugged with his eyes closed. No, what made you think that? Observing Raditz's veins which popped all over his body, from what Bulma considered was sheer anger, she said with a weird tone. Well, you look like you are about to burst a blood vessel for one. Raditz's face took on an understanding look, then he opened his eyes, which made Bulma confused, because they were yellow. She knew he had a transformation like that, but what she didn't know was why he was using it here. What are you transforming for? We are here to relax today. We are to leave for Namek tomorrow. Not minding her words, Raditz closed his eyes again, but his veins remained pronounced, showing he didn't cancel his transformation. Taking a deep breath, Raditz put his hands below his head and said with a relaxed voice, I am relaxing. This training works best when I relax. You know I can't take it lightly. I am going to fight Frieza. He is the strongest guy in the universe. Tilting her head, Bulma sat up and put her phone down. She wanted to hear what Raditz was so worried about. But can't you keep getting stronger using that form of yours? I checked your energy readings before. Your upper limit was so immense the computer crashed. Sighing while remembering their attempt at calculating what his full boost would be, and the computer blowing up like their scouters, Raditz mumbled. Although my eye can theoretically grow, and grow the more I access my Oozaru's strength and base, I can't do that practically. I always slip up and go full Oozaru when the boost is too high. I simply can't keep all that pressure contained within me. Getting into her scientist mode, Bulma hummed. So what's up with your situation now? This helps somehow. Nodding his head, Raditz opened his eyes and let out a breath. His body relaxed and his eyes went back to normal. Flexing his now relaxed arm, Raditz commented, Yes, this helps me raise my upper limit. What I am doing is quite simple. I am pushing myself to the absolute limit of what I can handle, the very edge after which any further push will make me slip. With his eyes glowing yellow once again to emphasize his point, Raditz showed his changes. First his eyes went yellow, then his hair started fluttering, and finally his veins started popping up. See? The more I use my Oozaru's power and base, the more my energy grows. But the pressure I have to keep contained increases too. So I am trying to get used to this state right now. I am trying to make it something I can use in my sleep. Opening her eyes wide with realization setting in, Bulma exclaimed, Oh, I see what you are trying to do now. When you get used to this level of energy, you will again push yourself to a new limit, isn't it? You can essentially keep growing until this transformation runs dry. Smirking haughtily, Raditz hummed. She was spot on. He might not have Broly's luxury of not having a tail and thus not having to worry about slipping up. But he did have the knowledge of how Saiyan bodies worked. This way of training where transformation becomes one's natural state is something he took from Goku. Goku and Gohan's perfected Super Saiyan was one of the best things Goku had come up with, and it was helping Raditz with his problems now. That is the gist of it. Very smart of you. Bulma smiled and fixed her hair. She liked getting complimented by Raditz, and she knew the stronger he is, the safer both of them are. Understanding he was training to overcome Frieza, she let him be, but the absurd way to training was pretty useful. You are like a cheat, you know. You can boost yourself up to 5 times, then lie around relaxing. After a few days, that's your natural state. So now you can again lie around after boosting yourself up to 10 times, and you can just keep repeating this until this transformation runs dry. Remembering the blown-up computer, she smiled. And running dry isn't happening anytime soon if that reading was anything to go by. Laughing loudly, Raditz wondered how Bulma will react if she knew even his base was constantly progressing. He had essentially made sure he can sit and eat, but he'll still keep growing stronger, both his base and his transformation. That was the results of using his Saiyan body to the fullest. Its ability to adapt was truly immense. But I can't really sit and laze around. All the time I am saving will be used to perfect Ultra Instinct. Raditz could barely trigger Omen by chance sometimes, but that was far from enough. He had to get the entire thing down, and he was working for it every day. He only did instinct training and nothing more. His power level after all will grow naturally with time. I am no cheat. This is just how Saiyans are. We aren't called a warrior race for nothing. In your terms, we have evolved to fight. If there was one species with the most potential in the universe, it would be us. Smiling slyly, Bulma bent down and Raditz felt a sensation on his lips, but he didn't open his eyes. Bulma stayed for a few seconds and got up. Yes, you are very cool, but don't train all day today. I want you to be fresh for tomorrow. We have to make a universal travel. I'll ask my sister what are things I should pay attention to. The last line was mumbled by Bulma. She wasn't showing it because she didn't want to put pressure on Raditz, but she was a bit worried he was going to fight this Frieza guy. She had talked to Nappa before, and from what she knew, he was bad news. That's why she decided to go together with him. Whatever happens, she'll be there for him. While Raditz and Bulma did their thing, the rest of the Z fighters prepared in their own way. Everyone was going, except for Yajirobe. That guy was hell-bent on wasting his potential, and no one could do a thing about that. Chapter 59. Spaceship. The next day had arrived, and it seemed the Z fighters' break of relaxation went well. Everyone was here with a happy mood. Except for Piccolo, that man was perpetually in a state of gloom. But Gohan's overexcited appearance made up for it. Speaking of Gohan, now that Chi-Chi was not there, Goku and Ox King were managing Gohan by themselves, and Goku in particular was doing a pretty good job at that too. Goku taught Gohan how to fight, how to relax, and gave him books left at home on an appropriate time. He was teaching Gohan like he did in canon, when they both left for the time chamber, with patience and understanding. Gohan was getting a balanced development in his life now. Goku even busted out the turtle hermit way for Gohan. Work hard, study well, and eat and sleep plenty. That's the turtle hermit way to learn, is what Rashi told Goku, and Goku now told Gohan. The boy looked less like a whimpering mess and more like a happy child now. You have gotten strong, Gohan, said Raditz, to which Gohan rubbed the back of his head just like his father and smiled happily. Thanks, Uncle Raditz. Father taught me a lot. The boy said happily with his head raised high, and Raditz was amused at the fact that Gohan was going to Namek just as a training tour. The boy was looking more and more like his Cell Games version, a strong but happy fighter, but someone who didn't like killing his opponents for no reason. That last part's something Gohan will get to reevaluate after our trip to Namek. Frieza goons aren't going to let him go just because he let them go, thought Raditz. Gohan will mature more as a fighter after this trip. Not only that, everyone here will get to experience space battles for the first time in their life. How many will survive is a question best left unasked. The real fact is not everyone will make it out intact. It's possible no one does. Frieza is not a joke, especially now that even Raditz wasn't capable of fighting him. He was still around 20,000 in base. His Ikari boost was 7 times max, and as a last-ditch attempt he could bust out Kaioken times 3. That wasn't nearly enough to kill Frieza. I gotta make the most of this gravity chamber. I need a boost quickly. Who knows if brother can transform against Frieza this time? Raditz was thinking about his chances against Frieza, and he would have pondered more if not for Dr. Briefs, who came out of the spaceship. Nodding to himself with a job well done, Dr. Briefs introduced the ship in detail to everyone. It was a massive ship, capable of fitting together all of the Z fighters, and have space remaining for them to train. A food button. Raditz mumbled after seeing a food processing button. It was a general food production machine, but its placement was quite weird to Raditz. Seeing how Goku was holding it in his hands, and wondering if he should press it. And that is the coffee machine right there. It has every kind of coffee you can imagine, said Dr. Briefs, introducing his last invention. It was also the last thing in this ship left to introduce. He was about done. Piccolo was tapping his feet in irritation. He couldn't use any of this, so he didn't care. He wanted to get on with it. And that's about it. Do you want me to repeat it? Something you don't understand? No, collectively said the Z fighters, to which Dr. Briefs nodded without any anger. He was a completely chilled man. And now that he had left, Raditz entered the ship again. The mechanical door opened without a hitch. Bulma was walking with Raditz, and they entered their room. This will be our room for a while? Not too shabby. Hey Bulma, can you make sure that this ship is parked in the sky? This is Frieza we are talking about. He could blow up the planet whenever he wants. Putting her bag down on the table, Bulma collapsed onto the bed, lying with her hands and legs spread open. Looking up at the white ceiling of the ship she too had hand in creating, she wasn't too worried. I have thought about it before. There is an autopilot function. It'll stay out of sight until we need it. Raditz was relieved hearing that. He couldn't stress the need for this ship to not go up in flames enough. Goku had already suffered that fate in the original, and Raditz wasn't going to bank on the chance of reaching Yadrit. You rest, I'll be off. I need to train and get my base strength raised. After saying that, Raditz left to train, although he will naturally grow because of his created technique. But training will increase this adaptation faster. And he will need raw power if he is to defeat Frieza, not technique. It will only bring him so far against someone like Frieza, unless he could unlock Ultra Instinct immediately. Chapter 60, Gravity Training. It's been a few days since the Z fighters began their journey to Namek, and Raditz was currently training in the gravity room specific to him. Swift yet nimble movements were the focus of Raditz's body type. He had naturally large frame with huge muscles, so by default he had weight and power behind his attacks. What he didn't have inherently was speed and swiftness. Another swift jab against a hologram Frieza was thrown by Raditz. He was currently focusing entirely on his weak point for this session, his agility. This issue was something which naturally came with his type of build, but the compact muscles Raditz had built up from his Oozuru training was giving him both speed and plenty of power. Stop it, Bulma, Raditz said while breathing hard. He was fighting against a second-form Frieza hologram for days now. These models were made from his memory of Frieza's fighting style. Alright, I'll turn off the gravity. While Raditz took a break, Bulma called out and turned off the gravity. She was here to watch him train and get some live data on holographic model. She was tasked to make them as realistic as possible, and accept some real tactile feedback. Everything else was almost finished. Zoom. The room made a sound and stopped pulling Raditz down, its gravity resetting to normal Earth's gravity. Opening the door, Bulma walked in with a towel and went up to Raditz. You have been progressing very fast, but your growth is beginning to slow down now that you have hit 150,000. Bending down, Bulma began wiping Raditz's long spiky mane, while he himself was just lying on the ground exhausted. Turning his eyes towards Bulma, Raditz said with a light voice, "This was bound to happen sooner or later. I haven't turned into a full Oozuru for a while, and I have already adapted to my previous strength. Unless I go complete Oozuru again and wait for my body to adapt itself to it, quick growth isn't going to happen." Bulma lightly hummed hearing Raditz's concerns. She by now knew of the two main ways Raditz trained. One was by physically conditioning himself to his Oozaru's strength, then slowly letting his base to catch up to it. And the second was constantly pushing Ikari to new limits. One was for base training, the second was transformation training. And in this spaceship, he could only do the second one, not the first. So while wiping away his sweat, Bulma wondered what she could do about it. This was something of a technical challenge to her, and she was going to overcome it. Gimme a while. I'll try to do something about it. Raising a questioning eyebrow, Raditz asked while slowly getting up. What can you do about this? This spaceship simply doesn't have enough space for me to go, Oozaru. Putting the towel away, Bulma sat down beside Raditz, who was now up and sitting cross-legged. I own the Capsule Corporation, silly. Space has never been our concern. Our entire product line is about fitting bigger things in smaller spaces. Giving him a smile, Bulma told Raditz of her idea. I spoke with Krillin the other day. He said there was a time chamber on the lookout, and that it went on and on with no end in sight. I think I can use our capsule technology to make something similar. The chamber's core technology seems pretty identical, but it won't have time dilation. I am not quite sure how to tackle that part yet. Swiftly giving Bulma a tight hug, Raditz exclaimed with amazement. You are the best, Blue. Smilingly cheekily and returning the hug, Bulma simply closed off the automatic door to the training room and locked it with her remote. I sure am. So let's relax for a bit, okay, Raditz? Gazing at the foxy Bulma and the closed training door, Raditz figured he might as well relax for a bit. No reason to spend all his time decking an ugly Frieza in his face. He'll leave that bit to Goku. Anyway, he had nothing to worry about. Now that Bulma was sure she could make something similar, he would be getting that very soon. If everything goes well, he'll reach about 1.5 million in base when they arrive at Namek. Click. With a click, the entire side of Raditz and Bulma's housing locked itself, and the chilling Krillin looked at that with a confused expression. Huh, Bulma must be messing with the ship again. It works just fine. He mumbled. He, Gohan, Tien and Kaiatsu were relaxing on the sofa. Piccolo and Goku were using the training room, Nappa and Yamcha were using the cafeteria, the rest simply waiting for their turn. Krillin noticed Gohan fidgeting a bit and asked with concern. What's the matter, Gohan? Are you hungry? Shaking his head with a slight blush, Gohan spoke with a voice bordering on helplessness. I want to train more. I don't need to take a break right now, and I have already finished my studies for the day. Holding his chin after hearing Gohan's problem, Krillin wondered what he could do to help the kid. Tien also opened his eyes, but he seemed to have a plan. Do you want to do image training? It won't help you with pure strength, but it'll polish your technique. Gohan was confused yet looking forward to this new technique he just heard about. I don't know how to do that. Getting up with a smile, Krillin walked up to Gohan and held out his hand. It's easy, just grab my hand and feel my ki. When we both do this, it'll create a link if we are near. That space can be used for image training. Nodding but still a little unsure of himself, Gohan held Krillin's hand, and in a few seconds he was sensing Krillin's ki. In the next instant he was in the image training zone. Letting go of Gohan's hand, Krillin praised him proudly. Wow, Gohan, you sure are talented, huh? You got this down in a jiffy. Looking down with a bashful look, Gohan scratched his cheek. He didn't think he was too special. There were plenty of people stronger than him. And when his dad and his uncle were training that hard even after being so strong, there was no reason he should be special. I am ready. Let's do this. Gohan sat down and the remaining Z fighters also sat facing each other in a circle. Everyone was going to brawl it out with each other in the image training zone. All of them were preparing themselves to fight against a possible army. This was the fastest way they could train coordination amongst themselves. They wouldn't want to get in the way of each other during the real battle. Chapter 61. Beatdown. Third form Frieza's elongated head was smashed onto the ground. The sheer force cracked his head and deformed his face. Huh. But the attacker didn't let go. Frieza's body kept ragdolling across the environment. Boom, boom, boom. Sadly for the attacker, it seems the angry Frieza finally found a chance to fight back. His thick tail smashed onto the white armored man. Gah! Raditz's chest sunk. His armor deformed as he was catapulted across the environment, breaking multiple trees and finally smashing into a lake. Splash! Quickly holding his breath, Raditz attempted to swim back out. His yellow eyes glowed with power. Umph! But as soon as he was about to surface, his head was gripped tightly from above. It was Frieza's three-fingered feet keeping him underwater. His head was pushed further back and the more he struggled. Even his skull was also under a lot of pressure. Frieza was squeezing it with all his strength, as if wanting for it to split open like a watermelon. Raditz's eyes' yellow glow was intense, but it didn't do anything. His strength simply couldn't keep up. Damn it! This was looking like a dead end. The constant thrashing was taking away his energy and his lungs were on fire. The only reason he could persist for so long under such pain was due to Pai Pai giving him advice on how to conserve energy underwater. But all things had an end, even his lung capacity. Crack. Umph dash. Blurb. Water started pouring down Raditz's throat, which was burning his lungs. His struggle got weaker and weaker. He kept gripping at Frieza's feet with no hope. Even the yellow glow started flashing in his eyes. His Ikari was failing with him, unable to keep his concentration. Just before Raditz's light was completely extinguished, his body flared up with a red aura. Boom. The resulting ki burst blew apart the lake in its entirety, which gave Raditz a chance to breathe again. He used that one gasp of breath to hold onto Frieza's legs and flipped himself up, hitting Frieza's face straight with his muscular leg. Boom asterisk, which caused Frieza to loosen his grip as he went hurtling through the green fields. Raditz, ignoring all that, quickly straightened himself. He was breathing heavily. His entire body was wet from the water, and his mane was dripping with sweat. Enough. The red aura enveloping Raditz was snuffed out, which caused a chain reaction, and the entire environment started flickering in and out of existence. Within a few more seconds, the surroundings vanished completely. Raditz's armor no longer had any water stains. There was no lake, neither were there any trees. The whole environment was gone. The only thing that remained was the pain Raditz felt and the half-broken android T. Voom. Raditz was trying to get his breath back when the door to the gravity room opened, and a lot of people poured in with various emotions on their faces. Nappa was the first to go and get Raditz up. Everyone had seen the entire fight. It was meant more as a taste of what's to come. The idea was hatched by Bulma while she worked on the holograms, and Raditz agreed to get it done, but after watching this fight it was less a taste, and more a punch to the face. King. How is Frieza so strong? Even the legendary Super Saiyan can't beat him. After coughing a bit more, Raditz got his bearings back and wondered how he should respond to the shaken Nappa. This setup was more than just a simulation. The attacks he experienced were the real deal. He alone was under immense gravity, but Android T, who acted as Frieza, was free from any gravity. This made simulating a real opponent easy for Bulma. She did something like that in canon too, but it was only plane drones which attacked Vegeta. Here the existence of Android T took her down a different path. Now instead of flying robots, it was an android cloaked with a hologram which attacked the user. Frieza. If you want my honest answer, I believe his full power is above 100 million. This is just something I felt whenever I had been around Frieza. Although I am pretty sure this is accurate, even these forms are something I had once seen by chance when I snuck into King Cold's palace. That was Raditz's answer to how he knew about the forms Frieza had in the first place, and this had actually happened. The original Raditz had once wandered into a corridor he shouldn't have been to, and there were portraits of different forms of Frieza's race. Those might have been one man's transformation, or it might have been different people of the Frieza race, like King Cold himself. Almost nobody knew about Frieza transformations, so original Raditz didn't connect these with transformations, but this was now an excellent cover form Raditz. Frieza is above 100 million. Nappa finally managed to push these words out of his throat. Everyone was almost aghast after watching this fight and didn't know how to handle the fact that this wasn't even his final form. Their idea to watch what they were up against didn't seem like such a good idea anymore, now that they know how less of a chance they had. Only a few more days remained for them to reach Namek. The Z fighters needed to think quickly if they wanted to survive against Frieza. Chapter 62. Planet Namek. After the Z fighters experienced how tragic Frieza truly was, they redoubled their efforts to get stronger. Gravity rooms were crammed to the limit, image training was done in plenty. Even Goku broke a 100,000 instead of his canon 90,000. This long, hard training continued until today. This was the day the spaceship was about to hit Namek, and no one was training anymore. Queen, how much longer till we reach? Asked Nappa. He was feeling pretty confident about himself right now. After experiencing Frieza versus Raditz, he threw himself against the hologram-coated android T. Nappa nearly broke himself with how hard he pushed his body. After experiencing Frieza's strength, his Saiyan instincts were flaring up. He was once again starting to improve after so many years. We'll be there in 10 minutes, replied Bulma from the cockpit. She was making sure the spaceship was parked in a safe position, somewhere in the sky. The Z fighters were both relieved and stressed after hearing that. No matter how everyone pushed themselves, it was the Saiyans who improved the most. The humans were around 15,000. Some were a little below that, some were a little above, but no one reached the growth the Saiyans experienced. Man, we didn't improve nearly as much as you guys did. Even Piccolo improved a lot faster than us. Throwing his head back, Yamcha complained. His complaint received a solid grunt from Piccolo, who was now reaching almost 80k. Tien decided to ignore it. He was somewhat of an alien too, but he was in reality just below Krillin. He was more human than he was alien, it seems. The core of the group, the Saiyans, sat around with different emotions as well. Nappa was proud of himself. Gohan was nervous. Raditz was calm, and Goku was excited. Honestly, I think you as a species are close to hitting your limit. I can feel it. Even I am close. Gripping his fist, Raditz explained his observations. I achieved 1.5 million a few days ago, and I can feel my strength can't grow much after this. I am reaching a species limit too. I am not quite sure where it is at. 3 million? 6 million? 10 million? Somewhere around that is where I will stop improving as a regular Saiyan. After all his training in Otherworld, Gravity Room, and Time Chambers, Base Goku was still absolutely no match for a Namek Arc Frieza, according to Beerus. Even in Super, after Goku obtained God Ki, his base still fluctuated immensely. This was theorized to be because he sometimes used God Ki in base and sometimes didn't. Although not outright stated, the manga made it a lot clearer. Goku indeed did have a regular base. Many of his fights and transformation choices made sense only when that was considered to be the case. I wasn't sure of this before, but now I am. This is where my limit lies. It just goes to show how absurd Broly really was. Broly might not be forever growing like the old Broly, but his power itself was over the top. For him to fight the way he did, he had to have at least 100 million in base. That was 10 times more than what Raditz can feel his limit was at. This alone made him helpless. Broly was the legendary Super Saiyan for a reason. It wasn't his transformations or his rage. It was his sheer natural strength, the top of what Saiyan biology can reach without changing into a different species altogether. I can feel it too. My growth has begun to slow down. I am not quite there yet, but I am close, said Tien after a while of uncomfortable silence. They were all feeling pretty down considering they were getting left behind. It wasn't for a lack of trying, and there wasn't a thing they could do about this. This was what was the source of their sadness. But sadness wasn't a thing where Goku was present. Oh, come on. You guys are plenty strong. So what if you're growing slowly, Krillin? You still haven't reached your limit, right? And when you are there, we will figure something out. King Kai is the god of our galaxy. He told me there are plenty of strong Earth fighters in Otherworld. You'll catch up in no time. Rubbing his nose, Krillin asked with an embarrassed smile. You really think so, Goku? Of course. Just when Goku was giving Krillin a big smile. Asterisk. Asterisk. The Z fighters all became instantly serious. They could sense something evil and strong, very strong. Is that Frieza? Oh boy. Whatever confidence Krillin had gathered was immediately scattered in the wind. This was such an evil key signature. It was making Vegetas look tame in comparison. We are reaching atmosphere. Everyone hold on. Bulma loudly yelled and the spaceship began to shake lightly. It was safe, but a comfortable landing had to be made. Taking a deep breath, Raditz rose from the sofa. His eyes scanned the Z fighters, and what they gathered from his eyes were confidence. This gave everyone else confidence as well. Raditz was their strongest fighter, and if he was confirmed in taking Frieza on, they can always help too. With that thought, every Z fighter got up from their seats. Raditz gave them a last look. If Guru unlocks their potential, these guys will receive the final boost they will ever receive. It's all downhill from here, unless they learn to use that. Whoom. The spaceship jerked once and then stopped after a lot of shaking, which made Raditz immediately ask Bulma, "This isn't normal. What happened?" Bulma yelled back from the cockpit, with irritation all over her voice. Some jerk attacked the ship. Raditz. He's here. Immediately blasting open the door, Raditz rushed out, and so did the Z fighters, and they came face to face with a red-headed human-looking man. Recum. Spat Raditz. One of the Ginyu Force was here. Chapter 63, Dragon Balls. Kakarot, do you feel that? Asked Raditz with his voice down. He was currently in a starting contest with Recum, who was posing and giving them taunting looks at the same time. Using this time, Raditz wanted to get a plan set up. They were obviously exposed. It must have been Vegeta's doing, or Ginyu Force should not have been here, much less specifically looking for them. Yes, there are people coming here, lots of strong people. Acknowledged Goku with a serious face. He could feel one of them was stronger than him by quite a lot. The others not so much, but if they go together he might have trouble. Ginyu Force. Recum. With the last shout, Recum finished his introduction, and Raditz knew he was about to start attacking, but Bulma hadn't gone far enough, and neither did they plan what to do yet. He needed to distract Recum for a while. Recum, you clown. What are you doing here? Asked Nappa after he saw Raditz's covert eyes, and Recum smiled widely at Nappa's insult, but before he could say something in return, boom. Nappa rushed to Recum and punched him straight in his face, actually knocking out some of his front teeth. Raditz used this time to wave at Bulma and give her a direction where the large power levels weren't coming from. She's gone. Our ride home is safe, let's go. The Z fighters landed on the ground after Bulma took the spaceship away. They no longer had to surround the ship for protection any longer. So Raditz's words were met with unanimous approval, and now that they were back on the ground, the Z fighters got ready. Because the enemies were here. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. For figures rushed towards their position, and almost immediately Nappa received a solid kick to his stomach from a blue blur. Ugh. Skidding to a stop, Nappa rubbed his stomach with a pissed-off face, but he wasn't hurt too much even if he didn't see it coming. Glaring at the blue blur who was named Birder, Nappa growled. He ignored the rest of the Ginyu Force who had regrouped, and Recum seems to have recovered enough to join in too. His teeth-less grin on full display. The man carried himself as if he didn't feel pain whatsoever. And Nappa was going to make sure he breaks the rest of his teeth too, to see how long he can keep that attitude going. Nappa come back. But his plans to rush Recum fell through after a voice called him back. Nappa was ordered by Raditz. He could feel Nappa wanted to take them all on his own, while Nappa could definitely to that normally after his recent boost. But the problem was that Jinyu was here. That man was not only 30k stronger than Nappa, he was also a body snatcher. Yes, my king, compiled Nappa and jumped back to the group, standing on the right of Raditz, whereas Goku stood on his left. Jinyu let that all happen happily. He must have a living audience to do their introduction. So you must be the new Saiyan King? A cruel one, aren't you? Vegeta was quite the sorry sight when he returned back to base. Said Jinyu with a big smile. He was happy that Rikum found the Saiyan King. They were tasked to take the man down. Vegeta's arrival and subsequent actions caused quite the stir in the Frieza force, so much so that Frieza decided to get involved. A legend was said to be the cause, but Jinyu wasn't sure. Humph. Folding his hands with a ballant disregard for Jinyu, Raditz raised his head and stared at him like he was a worm. What? Jinyu immediately felt a shiver run across his body. This was the characteristics of his race. This meant that a body better than his current one was in sight, so Jinyu instantly got cautious. But if he was good at something, it was hiding his intentions. His species innately had those instincts to help them sneak attack stronger foes. Not much for words, are you? Sad. I am told I make great company. If only you gave me a chance. That's right, Captain is a great company, repeated Jis with a smirk. He didn't know his captain had already felt some threat from the king. Jis was simply trying to intimidate Raditz. But this wasn't their usual business. Jinyu had set sights on Raditz's body. Still, Jinyu wasn't about to tell them anything. If they die, they die. He would get the king's body out of this one way or the other. Body snatchers. What a bizarre species. Raditz narrowed his eyes while thinking in his mind. What neither of them knew was Raditz didn't need someone to speak out loud. Raditz knew Jinyu's intentions as soon as he had them. There wasn't a single chance of Jinyu sneak attacking him and actually winning, or winning against anyone for that matter now that he was here. Neither Vegeta nor the frog were here to give Goku his body back. Raditz didn't want a budget version of Goku Black running around so soon. Jinyu had to be stopped before he could do any damage. Be careful, especially you Kakarot. This is the leader of the Jinyu force. He can swap bodies with anyone. Do not let him get you. What? How did you know? Jinyu was startled beyond measure. This was one of the greatest kept secret of the Jinyu force. Only Frieza and a few others knew of this. Who leaked it to the Saiyan King? Oh wow. I see, my king. Seriously? Oh man. Goku and the rest of the Z fighters were now wary. After watching Jinyu's reaction, they knew this man had the plan to steal one of their bodies. And Yamcha was sure it was his body Jinyu wanted to steal. He should totally stay away from this guy. So you won't tell who told you about this, is that right? Fine. I'll beat it out of you myself, Saiyan. Jinyu angrily barked. He was beyond pissed at his secret going out like that. But Raditz was not concentrating on Jinyu. He had his eyes closed for a second and opened them with shock. Whoom. The skies of Namek were beginning to darken. Black clouds were gathering on a position not far away from here. And then a flash of bright yellow light rose from the ground, which caused the Z fighter's heart to almost stop. That's the Eternal Dragon. Without another word, Raditz rushed towards the position with his eyes glowing yellow. If Frieza got his wish, it was game over for him. Chapter 64, Double Trouble. Grand Elder Guru was the father of every Namekian present on Namek, and he was extremely saddened by the massacre of his kind that was taking place. Namekians had managed to recover from a catastrophe that would have eliminated their race just a few years ago, and now another massacre was upon them. But that wasn't all. The enemy had come for the Dragonballs. The Dragonballs he made. That was why they were getting massacred, and this was a reality which saddened Guru greatly. Ah! Screams of his children echoed in Guru's ears, but he was so old he could barely talk, much less move. He knew the enemy was coming closer. Not many still remained, only a handful of people, and few kids survived. We will never give you the Dragon Balls. You monster! Dash. Swish. Another child fell. Guru had seen much, but his race's complete extinction was not something he could ever be prepared for, even after all his experience. Nail, his personal guard, was out there trying to fight against the enemy, and he was last heard from half an hour ago. Guru feared the worst. Boom. Out of nowhere, the front wall of Guru's house was blown apart. The debris hit Guru's old body, and they hurt him greatly. Oh my sincerest apologies. A thin and distinctly evil voice exclaimed in a polite tone. His words might have been speaking of apology, but the dead Namekians lying behind him spoke of something else entirely. Guru opened his eyes with great effort and saw the face of their killer. The aggressor's short stature didn't make him any less threatening to Guru. What do you come here for, outsider? Guru asked in a deep voice. His old age was apparent even in his speech, but this didn't faze Frieza. His polite smile and gentlemanly demeanor expressed his manners, but in stark contrast were his actions. Allow me to introduce myself, Namekian. I am Lord Frieza, and I have come for the Dragon Balls. I was told the last one would be with you. May I have it? I am quite interested in making a wish. Guru's fears were coming true. The man really did come for the Dragon Balls. He might speak politely, but one look at him would convince anyone otherwise. Frieza's henchmen had half-dead Namekians and the remaining children, many of whom had already died and only some were still alive. Frieza himself was holding behind him a half-dead man with spiky hair. Frieza's tail was tightly curled around the man's throat. The man in question was somehow still holding onto his consciousness, refusing to go down even when his body almost did. Another victim of Frieza is what Guru would have considered him, if his energy also wasn't so evil. "You cannot have the Dragon Balls," said Guru. He knew telling this now was a death sentence to his entire race, but he cannot in good faith give this evil being access to the Dragon Balls. This was his duty as the creator of Dragon Balls, even if he was bleeding from pushing his race to extinction by his own hands. After Guru's direct refusal, Frieza raised a finger and said in a polite yet authoritative voice, "That wouldn't do. I came all the way here for the Dragon Balls. I cannot possibly leave empty-handed. How about this, Namekian? For every minute I don't have my Dragon Balls, one of you will die. You can start counting now." Pointing his raised finger at a scared child, Frieza smirked. "See you." Gah! A pink energy beam went straight through the heart of the child, killing him as he slowly lost his breath in pain. "You monster! You will never get the Dragon Balls. We would rather die. See you." A death beam through the arms of Grand Elder Guru immediately shut every Namekian up. "You." Guru's pained voice stabbed them straight in their hearts. They were ready to die, but seeing Guru get hurt was very painful for them. "I do not believe you understand your position, Namekians. Hand over the Dragon Balls." Frieza's voice chilled at the end, and Guru knew this was the last chance the monster was giving them. He was in pain, but he wasn't afraid, his only regret being he couldn't save even one of his race, because after this debacle Frieza would eliminate them all. "See you. See you. See you." Ugh. Guru was continuously getting death beamed by Frieza, who took his time torturing him to the limit. Every hole created in him burned but didn't kill him immediately. Frieza was simply torturing him for the sake of torturing. To his men it wasn't anything new considering how gleeful they looked. But to the peace-loving Namekians it was too much, way too much. "Enough. Stop." Stopping for a second, Frieza turned towards another older Namekian, and then his fingers shone again. "See you." The elder's hands clenched, and he almost pleaded, "Please stop. Don't hurt him anymore." Putting his finger down now that he was spoken to in a polite way, Frieza turned towards the elder. "Oh? Are you ready to give me the Dragon Balls?" "I am, but you must not kill any more of our people." Bringing his hand to his face, Frieza laughed joyfully. "Oh ho ho. Bring me the Dragon Balls, please." That was the only thing he said. No promises at all, but Elder Mori had only that one hope remaining. Every Namekian alive had an angry and tragic look to them, but nobody stopped Mori, because this was not something Mori wanted to do either. The one who was suffering the most was Mori. Even the Grand Elder Guru only sighed. He knew Mori was soft-hearted. He couldn't see him getting killed in such a fashion. He would have told Mori to let him go, but he didn't have the energy to speak. His entire body was riddled with holes. What he now wanted was for Frieza to finish him off, making sure the Dragon Balls deactivate. Plink. Mori picked up the last Dragon Ball hiding behind Guru's seat and brought it to Frieza. Dropping it together with the 6 collected balls made them shine all at once. Blink, blink, blink. The Dragon Balls flickered. Their shine was on full display as their magic was beginning to show. Frieza was close to getting his wish, but Guru couldn't make out half of the words being spoken. He had lost too much blood and was dying. He could still vaguely feel the dragon being summoned. "If only I had passed away sooner," thought Guru. His life was passing, but it was too late. They lost. His senses had almost shut down. His ears only heard some last muffled voices, yet out of nowhere. "Dodon Ray." A clear voice and a searing pain in his chest. His heart was blown away. Yet he had only his thanks to give. He could feel the wish hasn't been granted yet, and with him gone no Namekian will be forced to bend. "Thank you, stranger." With a smile, Guru took his final breath. "What's happening? Where did that come from?" exclaimed Zarbon, his eyes looking everywhere and his scouter trying its best to pick something up. But soon his shock was for a different reason, because before their very eyes the eternal dragon began to flash. Gruel. With a deep grief-filled howl, Purunga flashed out of existence. The Dragon Balls turned to stone soon after. Boom. Instantly the ground below Frieza's feet collapsed into a crater. It was from the sheer energy he was releasing out of anger. "What is the meaning of this?" Frieza asked with a completely pissed-off face. His teeth clenched and his tail tightened around Vegeta's neck, making him struggle and choke without support. Whoever took his wish away just now would pay for it dearly. Frieza would eliminate them with his own hands. And Frieza could already make someone out in the sky, someone who was coming down. Whoosh. Frieza didn't have to wait too long as he came face to face with someone who make his angry mood become straight up murderous. "It's you, the new Saiyan King." As if a switch was flipped, Frieza's anger vanished. But the veins on top of his head told a different story. He was boiling from the inside. You were hiding in plain sight around me all this while. I'll admit I never would have guessed the most pathetic of the monkeys was the legendary Super Saiyan. That is what Vegeta seems to believe you are. Bringing the coughing Vegeta before him, Frieza punched him from the back. Aya! Making Vegeta call out in pain, but he did manage to open his eyes. And the first sight he saw was Raditz. He felt pathetic showing himself like this. He felt like an utter disgrace to end up like trash in the hands of Frieza. He couldn't do anything now, no matter how much he tried. He didn't stand a chance against Frieza. He never stood one to begin with. Raditz, please, kill Frieza. As the Saiyan King, please, avenge our race. Clench. Aowag. Vegeta's eyes almost popped from his neck, getting squeezed. Those tears were involuntarily, or from his failure was a mystery. But Raditz didn't need to solve this mystery. He had been with Vegeta long enough to know the prince just put down his pride to beg him, the new king, to end this. Frieza. Raditz spoke with narrowed eyes. Ending this wasn't something only Vegeta wanted to do. Raditz also had to make sure Frieza stayed dead. If Frieza survived by any chance and actually trained before coming to find him in the Android Saga, he will be a goner. It's too soon to fight Golden Frieza, and God forbid Black Frieza. So dash. Kikaho. A surprise Kikaho took the entire army by surprise. Raditz used his full 1.5 million base to fire off a swift Kikaho right at Frieza. What? No. And almost immediately Frieza was drowned in it, getting caught off guard by the suddenness of the attack. His screams resounded for a split second and then faded from existence, leaving the entire Frieza force and Namekian stunned. But Raditz himself wasn't happy. He was stiff and sweat was beginning to pour down his back. My son, you almost got yourself killed. A cold voice came from behind the dust cloud, and soon a tall and short figure came before everyone's eyes. Shit. Vegeta, you bastard. What did you tell them? Imagine Maker. Chapter 65. Raditz vs. Frieza. Raditz's surprise attack didn't work, and now he was alone with no help in sight, facing off against both Frieza and King Cold at once. Fantastic. Looking at the father-son duo, Raditz folded his hands and kept his cool. I didn't take you for a coward, Frieza. You called your daddy dearest to fight against a little old me. Does the legend scare you that much? How pathetic. Words filled with disgust came out of Raditz's mouth. Although he was not happy with this situation, he still had to keep his mind in the game. One slip up and he is done for. You vile monkey dash. Stopping his words mid-sentence, Frieza laughed with veins wiggling on his forehead. Your kind is just as crude as always, but then again, what else can I expect from you Saiyans? King Cold laughed along in a low voice, agreeing to his son wholeheartedly. The legend that my son has been going on about, I came here to see for myself? Are you supposed to be the legend? Is this what you were afraid of, Frieza? Veins popping with anger, Frieza maintained his smirk. Perhaps Vegeta was out of his mind. Father, look Vegeta, is this your legendary Super Saiyan? This is who you believed would avenge your race? How pathetic. Boom. Forcefully throwing Vegeta to a mountain with a flick of his tail, Frieza clenched his fists and bent down. A pinkish-purple energy was starting to leak from his body. Raditz had almost killed him with his last attack. Frieza was pissed and wanted nothing more than to destroy Raditz with his own hands. You think you can take me on with such little strength? Well, guess what, monkey? What you see before you is only my first form. Ha-yeah. A massive amount of energy leaked from Frieza. It began rampaging throughout the area, taking the surviving Namekians and Vegeta with it. Raditz cursed watching the helpless Namekians getting caught and moved swiftly to save the peaceful bunch. Frieza himself was now protected by King Cold, and Cold was a threat Raditz couldn't ignore. He simply didn't know if Cold could transform immediately like Frieza and ROF. Cold was keeping an eye on Raditz all this time since his last sneak attack, so instead of brashly attacking Frieza again, Raditz saved the remaining Namekians first. He wasn't really worried as he still had his Iakri, which was up though 10 times after his recent training. 15 million power level is enough to handle them until one of them is out of the picture. Whoosh. Finally bringing the last Namekian out of the blast radius, Raditz gestured at them to leave. Frieza had already killed all his men with this forceful transformation alone. Even Zarbon was dead. At least they don't have to worry about the soldiers attacking them again. But the Namekians didn't leave immediately. Elder Mori came to Raditz and bowed. Thank you, Saiyan King, said Elder Mori, who was now the de facto leader after Guru passed away. Raditz once again waved at them. Frieza was almost done and Cold was looking at them with curious eyes, which meant danger, a lot of danger. Leave at once, and take my companion with you if you can. Pointing towards the panting Vegeta, Raditz told the Namekians, who nodded with a bit of struggle and quickly picked up Vegeta and started running away. King Cold still looked at them funny and then at Raditz. What is the point of this? After we are done with you, we will finish them all either way. If they had stayed, you worms could have tried fighting together. Perhaps that would let you understand your place. King Cold said with a smile, his words just as vicious as his intent, and his sentence finishing together with Frieza's transformation. Now two second-form father-son were standing side by side. Raditz let out a breath. The father-son had a strange dynamic. They clearly didn't trust each other, yet they acted as if they did. As long as one falls, the other would transform instantly. Raditz's best bet was waiting until some help arrives. That was one of the reasons he let Vegeta go with the Namekians. Here's hoping the healed Vegeta insists on coming back, or they get Goku, Piccolo, or Nappa to support. Raditz was not arrogant enough to think he can take on 100% Frieza alone, much less take on both Cold and Frieza. His idea had been to get his potential boosted by Guru after arriving at Namek, but that went absolutely nowhere. Thud. Sadly, giving Raditz time to think wasn't Frieza's game plan. Slapping his massive tail on the ground, Frieza stared at Raditz. Are you done gawking at me, monkey? Raditz knew he couldn't delay it any longer. They were ready to act, and thankfully so was he. Lowering himself into a stance, Raditz's hair began floating up. His eyes started to glow yellow, and his strength was dramatically increasing. Although King Cold and Frieza were wholly unaware as they didn't know how to sense ki, but that didn't mean they couldn't see him change. What's this? Is this the legendary Super Saiyan? You are looking different from the rest of the monkeys, said Frieza with no fear whatsoever. He didn't know Raditz had long shot up beyond his second form to somewhere beyond his third. Right now, King Cold and Frieza were both in their second forms. Although King Cold was stronger than Frieza in his second form, but he was still nowhere close to the 15 million Raditz was at. Is this the legendary Super Saiyan? Smirking ferociously, Raditz vanished and appeared before Frieza's shocked eyes. Why don't you try it for yourself, Frieza? Boom. Frieza's cheeks sunk and his body ragdolled across the grassland. You! King Cold was aghast before he too was grabbed by the horns and received a knee straight to his nose. Crack. Cracking it instantly. Before he could recover from his brain being shaken, Raditz took his knee back and, crack, rammed into Cold's face again, his grip tightly on Cold's horns letting him flail around with no escape. Boom. Crack. Boom. Crack. King Cold was now in tremendous pain and doing whatever he could to push Raditz away, who was holding on with his full strength. But as King Cold's actions became more and more violent, something finally happened. Snap. Aff. Cold's eyes became bloodshot. From his disgraceful treatment, or from his horns which were now broken and held in Raditz's hands, he didn't know. But instead of rushing back to Raditz like Frieza would have, Cold backed away immediately. He's backing away? He is different from Frieza, all right. He is the one who would rather use tricks to defeat Trunks. Cold was a man who was more shrewd than he was a fighter. Cold would say anything to get your guard down and then backstab you right after. Wait, Saiyan King Dash. Nope. Boom. Another punch hit Cold's gut. His mouth opened wide from the sheer pain he was feeling, but Frieza's race's resistance to damage was second to none. Except for Bu maybe, but besides that, Frieza's durability was the highest in Dragonball so far. Getting cut in half form waist down? He's fine. Blowing up with Namek without defending himself? He's fine. Getting absolutely destroyed by SS Yakri Broly? He's fine. No way was Raditz going to be convinced Cold had taken any real damage before he actually kicks the bucket. Boom. And so began Raditz's beatdown of Cold and Frieza whenever he returned for some more. Curiously, this situation was eerily similar to Broly railing on Frieza. With Frieza being in the receiving end of Yakri, but Raditz knew this wouldn't continue for long. It was only a matter of time before one of them manages break the game. Either by transforming or straight away going for the Z fighters. He fully expected King Cold to do this, but this would work out in his favor. All the Z fighters are together against the Jinyu force. Cold will only dig his own grave. Knowing that, Raditz simply ignored the glint in Cold's eyes and focused on Frieza more. Cold needed to leave before he could give it his all against Frieza. Chapter 66. Kamehameha. Boom. 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 Raditz kept dodging the rain of death beams fired by Frieza. It was supposed to be limiting his vision and judgment, but he sensed Cold running straight for the Jinyu force. Finally. Now Goku can handle Cold. That man can definitely transform further. There is a lot of energy dormant in him that he can't use. Raditz had sensed both Frieza and Cold's true power hidden within their bodies when he purposely looked for it. Cold was comparable to Frieza, that much Raditz knew, but what was new information was that Cold was not used to his transformations. Cold looked to be trying to transform many times but fumbled it all the time. In that case, Frieza was a total genius. This man could go in and out of forms whenever he wants. H.A. Releasing a yellow energy wave of his own, Raditz overpowered all the dead beams fired by Frieza. Boom. Frieza once again ragdolled and crashed into a mountain. From where Raditz could sense his energy, it was beginning rise uncontrollably. He's transforming again. It's the third form, judging from energy reactions. After distancing himself from Raditz, Frieza transformed immediately. He was pissed after being beaten left and right by a Saiyan. The only reason he didn't do forceful transformations was not that he couldn't, but that it burns a lot more energy doing it like that. That was simply how his transformations worked, but now Frieza didn't care that much about conserving his energy. Raditz. Third form Frieza's elongated head was giving Raditz déjà vu. This was how far he had ever reached fighting against Frieza in the simulations. This was the last phase of the boss fight he could get past. The final form Frieza was the part he was stuck in, couldn't make any progress. Might as well be soft-locked, thought Raditz. He missed his video games. Frieza, you managed to get uglier and uglier with each transformation. It's kinda amazing how bad you can look. Raditz's words ticked off Frieza again, but he was getting used to the insults the Saiyan King threw at him. He was scarily adaptable. It won't be much of a stretch to call Frieza the Broly of his race. Ugly? Ho ho ho. You savages can't even control yourselves before a mere moon. I blow up moons for breakfast, monkey. Raditz smiled. Frieza wasn't about to get pissed off easily anymore. He was adapting, but so was Raditz. Raditz's Saiyan body was currently in full throttle. His fighting instincts were focused like never before. With narrowed eyes, Raditz looked at Frieza curiously and asked the question, "Why did you destroy our planet, Frieza? I don't think you will be scared of a mere legend." "You don't act that way, Frieza. I had assumed it was King Cold's idea all this while, but after fighting against him today, I am sure it wasn't his." For 1 second, Frieza's body started sweating ever so slightly, but that was enough for Raditz to catch on. "Oh, you are sweating? I am on point then. There is something which scares you, huh, Frieza? Didn't know I would see the day. Lord Frieza following orders because he is scared." Boom. Dodging the death beam fired his way, Raditz looked at Frieza with cold yellow eyes. "You think you know everything, monkey? You don't have any idea what you are talking about." Frieza rushed over with his large body. He was hiding his anger at being reminded he was indeed taking orders from someone that time. Although he was the ruler, but that was Beerus. Beerus and Bu were someone Cold had told Frieza to keep clear from at all costs. Whoosh. Rolling away from the charge, Raditz turned around and grabbed Frieza's tail. Boom. And threw him at a mountain. Rushing towards the sky, Raditz joined his hands together. From now on he would fight to kill. Frieza needed to die and not reach his final form at any cost. For that he was going to use a technique he hadn't used once since the day he learned it. Ka! Crash. Breaking open the rocks he was buried in, Frieza started charging at Raditz again, who calmly kept concentrating as much energy as he could. Backflipping away in mid-air, Raditz kicked Frieza's back with all his strength, sending him crashing onto the floor. A fall which Frieza stopped by flipping and landing on his feet instead. Hiya! The energy ball was shining brightly in Raditz's hands, its potency increasing by the second. Creating a pink energy ball of his own, Frieza fired it as a large wave towards Raditz, who had built up all the energy he could in the basic Kamehameha. This technique of Rashi always hits harder than the power level that made it. It was quite similar to Piccolo's special beam cannon, but Kamehameha depended much more on control and the time spent to make it. And Raditz had both in spades. Both time and control were behind this one Kamehameha. It was the deadliest Kamehameha created till date. And Frieza was going to bear the brunt of it all. Perish. Frieza. Hiya. Asterisk whoosh. Frieza's energy wave was attempting to fight back but was steadily defeated, causing him to look up in shock. No. It can't be. Frieza's pushed back with all his strength, his knees bending with the amount of effort he was dishing out. But it was no use. His veins were about to burst from pressure, and he had fallen on the ground from the pushback. And finally, before his eyes, the Kamehameha had managed to reach him, scalding him from the sheer heat. "You damn monkey!" Frieza roared. Even in his third form, he was holding onto the attack for a few seconds before the Kamehameha detonated. A hemisphere of yellow energy covered Namek. An attack of this potency would have destroyed Namek if not for Raditz detonating his attack on the surface. Huff huff huff. Raditz was panting. This took a lot out of him too. He was fighting against Cold and Frieza for a while, and maintaining Akari for this long wasn't easy either. Hopefully this attack did it. Raditz couldn't sense anything due to the Kamehameha's energy messing with his senses. But this should have been enough to at least hurt Frieza badly if not kill him outright. Raditz hoped it was. He was pretty damn winded right now. Chapter 67. Saiyan Instincts. Raditz landed unsteadily and deactivated his Akari right after to catch his breath. The kickback from fighting an Akari for so long was intense. Raditz could hardly move his body anymore. Going beyond 8 times boost was a bad idea after all. Raditz thought with a grimace. After his training, although he could go beyond an 8 times Akari, it was still very taxing to him, so he had kept 10 times as his max possible limit. Yet he had to forcibly go 10 times to match the father-son duo. This forceful usage put a tremendous pressure on his body. Raditz was simply out of the game right now and needed healing. "Don't give up on me now, body. Come on, move." But although he couldn't move anymore, he was silently struggling. His eyes never left the area Frieza just collapsed in. The excess energy was starting to die down and he could sense again. And what he sensed was pure bad news. Damn it. Is that? Raditz cursed from what he was sensing. Not only was Frieza alive, and well he had gone ahead and done it. Step, step, step. Distinct stepping sounds came from the dust-covered area. Sounds that were definitely made by non-human feet. Raditz could make out a short purple-headed Frieza coming out of the blast area with no injuries in sight. This was Frieza's final form, the best-looking Frieza there was, but Raditz wasn't able to appreciate the simplistic beauty of this design. For he was in all kinds of trouble right now. TCH, the transformation took care of his injuries. There was one weird power Frieza's race had. Regeneration, more specifically transformative regeneration. In the original story, it was used when Krillin severed Frieza's tail from his body, but as soon as Frieza went up a form, he got it back. His race could even survive being separate from the waist down and still continue to fight. Seeing how Frieza was currently in full health, Raditz concluded that Frieza was forced to transform because he was hurt. His Kamehameha did what it was supposed to do, but it didn't work out as he had intended. Step. With a last stepping sound, Frieza had walked up to Raditz and was looking at him in the eye level. This wasn't because Frieza was now tall, but it was because Frieza was so short, and the tall Raditz was sitting on the ground. With his eyes narrowed, Frieza stared at Raditz. Raditz was panting but still stubbornly staring at him. His face without the slightest fear, only a stable calmness. Frieza didn't like those eyes at all, so he raised his tail. Snap. And immediately tail smacked Raditz on the head, collapsing him into the ground. Boom. Raditz's body was lying down in the crater. His head was bleeding profusely. He was gritting his teeth in pain, but he didn't say a word, nor did he move out of the way. Which didn't make sense to Frieza. Raditz wasn't even transformed going by his hair. His body was in his base form, yet there was one key difference from his natural state. Within his dark eyes a gray glow was starting to flash. It was extremely unstable, but it was stubbornly not going out. Why don't you fight back, monkey? Are you giving up now? But Frieza was disappointed as Raditz didn't speak a word. He simply panted from exhaustion and kept gazing up in the air from his collapsed position. Did I break your head from that last attack? How pitiful. Raising his feet, Frieza clenched his teeth and with full force, boom, stepped on Raditz's chest, causing him to spit out blood from the internal shock. Fight back, monkey. Boom. Another stomp and Raditz's ribs creaked. Frieza was standing above Raditz and kept stomping on him again and again. His eyes cruel and his intentions crueler. Boom. Gah. Raditz's chest had several deep red gashes. The continuous stomps he was receiving from final form Frieza were damaging him pretty badly. He was in a lot of pain, but his eyes stubbornly refused to close, the gray flashing less and less and becoming more stable by the second. Boom. Kicking away Raditz's body like trash, Frieza looked incensed. How dare this monkey force him to transform? Hurt him so badly and now refuse to fight. Unforgivable. You damn Saiyan. Wish. A pink death beam tore through the sky and rushed towards the fallen Raditz. His body was hurting all over, and he was unable to retransform into Iakri, so he could only lie there and watch the death beam flash helplessly. Pink was filling his vision, and his situation was turning dire by the second. Move, damn it. Move. Gritting his teeth, Raditz struggled with all his strength. His eyes kept flashing, but he was wholly unaware of the phenomenon. He wanted to move. That was the only thing in his mind right now. Sadly, he was late. The death beam was upon him, and he could now feel its sizzling heat against his skin. It was an unavoidable attack. But, twist. Out of nowhere, his tense body relaxed and twisted out of the death beam's way. What? Raditz's eyes went wide with surprise at the current turn of events. He found himself doing a handstand in a relaxed fashion. His body was still hurting, but he could easily ignore that in this lax state of mind. This is Master Roshi's style. It didn't take long for Raditz to realize what this was. This was Master Roshi's brand of Ultra Instinct that he had copied before, and he seems to have finally found the key to unlocking this state. It's the desire to move yet not consciously moving. This middle ground is when Ultra Instinct begins to act. With Raditz's realization, the gray glow finally stopped flickering and settled in completely. Pushing himself off the ground with a simple flick of his fingers, Raditz landed on the ground in one smooth motion. His actions had a type of natural beauty to them, something which Frieza understood at a base level but couldn't understand why it felt that way to him. What are you doing, monkey? I am not opposed to a monkey show, but now is not the appropriate time, don't you think? Frieza mockingly asked Raditz. His polite smile had returned to his face. He was already at 50%, and his 60 million power level was giving him confidence to control the situation. But Raditz had already stood up and was currently patting himself down, clearing the dust staining his white armor. You know, Frieza, I wanted to tell you something before. This final form of yours is much better than your previous forms. With his eyes narrowed, Frieza stared at Raditz, then straightened his face and began laughing. Ho ho ho, flattery will get you nowhere, Saiyan. I no longer need savages like you dirtying my territory. With a smile of his own, Raditz ignored Frieza and started shadowboxing, slowly getting used to his incredible movement speed. I am not telling you this because I want to flatter you or work under you, Frieza. I am saying this because dash, whoosh. Frieza's eyes went wide as Raditz flashed before him with ferocious grin on his face. It would be a shame if you break down too easily. Boom. Ag. Blood came flying out of Frieza's mouth as he felt Raditz's knee slam into his stomach. His insides felt as if they were shredded to pieces. The sheer focus behind the attack was so immense that Frieza took more damage in this one hit than he had taken in his lifetime. This goddamn Saiyan. Chapter 68. Healer. As soon as Vegeta regained consciousness, he jumped. Frieza. Huff huff huff. Breathing heavily, Vegeta looked around and found himself in a white dome-like house. There were some Namekians on his side. A child amongst them seems to have healed him just now. Immediately pointing his hand towards the child, Vegeta gathered a ki blast, startling every Namekian. But he didn't care one bit. You there. You better start talking. What just happened? Vegeta's words only brought more indignation from the Namekians. This man was obviously evil, but they had promised Raditz to heal him. Maybe Raditz was mistaken, because there was no way this guy could be a partner of their savior. The child in question was frightened and spoke in a shaking voice. I am Dind. The Saiyan King asked us to heal you. I was just healing you, said Dind, who this time around seems to have miraculously survived the massacre. Well, it wasn't much of a miracle because many others had died in this scenario too. Lowering his hands, Vegeta gritted his teeth. He felt incredibly angry at being reminded he was no longer royalty. But he had more important things to do than kill all these idiots and show them their place. Tisage. Clicking his tongue, Vegeta got up with narrowed eyes and squeezed his gloved fist with concentration. A Zenkai boost, concluded Vegeta in a low voice. His power had shot all the way up to 500,000, if he was sensing this right. He had already learned how to sense ki after his battle on Earth, and had a pretty good idea he was around the strength of Frieza when Frieza was torturing him. Damn. Remembering Frieza, Vegeta cursed in frustration. He wanted to go and kill Frieza himself, but there was one thing stopping him from doing that. What is that power level? What happened to Frieza? Vegeta's loud commands were now starting to bother the Namekians. They were regretting healing this bastard. What a massive piece of garbage. Mori took command of the situation and walked up to Vegeta. Frieza has transformed. The Saiyan King is fighting against him right now. Raising his eyebrows, Vegeta asked with a startled look. Transformed? Mori nodded, then made a gesture with his hands. Soon a green energy began to shine around them. Before Vegeta could ask what this was, he started hearing voices. Second form, third form, final form, Saiyan King, fight. These intermittent whispers let Vegeta understand something. This was a recounting of what happened. Mori knew Vegeta might have doubts, and before they could, he threatened again. He took the initiative to explain. This is the planet speaking. Some of us are more close to the planet than the others, and can ask the planet for help. Vegeta snorted. So this was essentially Namekian magic. This didn't surprise him, as these pathetic wastes created the Dragon Balls. You can't do that kind of thing without magic, at least in Vegeta's knowledge. But before any of them could think what to do next, the planet began whispering again. Cold. Transformed. Allies in danger. The intermittent whispers stopped for a second and restarted again. Allies. Danger. Kaiatsu. Dead. Yamcha. Dead. Tien. Danger. With a frown, Vegeta got up from his bed and turned towards Mori. What is this planet of yours muttering about? Cold? Who's that? Mori, with a deep sense of powerlessness, cancelled the connection with Namek. He knew about this himself. Namek is likely talking about King Cold. He was fighting the Saiyan King with Frieza last we saw him. Saiyan King should have scared him away. Vegeta started walking out of the house after hearing that. He wasn't scared away. If it's Cold, that bastard is planning to use the Earthlings as bargaining chip against Raditz. That fool. He has no idea. Raditz as a Saiyan has no interest in saving the Earthlings whatsoever. Vegeta's words failed to resonate with the Namekians. There was absolutely no way the Saiyan King was evil. Vegeta was simply in a world of his own, disconnected from reality, is what almost all the Namekians thought. But Vegeta wasn't interested in talking further. He was sensing Kakarot and another big energy signature there. That must be Nappa. With a bloodthirsty smirk, Vegeta blasted off towards the location of Cold. He was incapable of fighting against Frieza, although he would have gone there nonetheless. Now that Cold, Nappa, and Kakarot were here, he had a different set of priorities. First, he'll go and kill Cold, then Nappa, and then Kakarot. If chance presents itself, he'll kill both Raditz and Frieza with a sneak attack as well. I am Prince Vegeta. I am the only worthy Saiyan. With a ferocious smile, Vegeta speeded up, his heartfelt words blowing in the air. Raditz. I will take back my rightful place, you hear me? With Vegeta gone, The Namekians breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at each other. It was a question of what was to be done, and Mori seems to have already thought of something. Half of us should go help the Saiyan King's allies against Cold. If that man is right and Cold threatens Saiyan King with his partners, he will be forced to compromise. We have to make sure the King's partners are safe. Mori's words got many mumblings started in the Namekians. They knew the Saiyan King was their last line of defense. Once he fell, they will fall together with him. It wasn't because of hesitation that they were mumbling. It was because of belief. I'll go to the Saiyan King, said Dind. This was the source of their hesitation, because before Vegeta woke up, they had already spoken to the planet once. And the planet had told them that the Saiyan King was injured greatly. So they were in a tough spot. Their idea was to heal Vegeta, the King's partner, and tell him about the King's problem. But after watching Vegeta's attitude, they wisely thought against it. Vegeta would no doubt kill the Saiyan King any chance he got, which left only one option to them. One of us has to go and help the Saiyan King. Dind, this is about your life too. Are you sure you want to do this, child? Dind was afraid yet firmly nodded. He was a healer and he would help the King as best as he could. The King was fighting to save them and Namekians weren't a heartless bunch. Mori finally nodded and patted Dind on the head, asking one of the stronger Namekians to go with him. Gyuri, please take Dind to the Saiyan King. Leave it to me, said Gyuri, after which the remaining group decided to go towards Cold. They also had a healer. They will try to keep the King's partners alive as much as possible. Chapter 69. Goku vs. King Cold. Kairatsu. Tien cradled Kairatz's burnt body. A large hole had been punched through him and he was gone for good. Tien was so angry holding his best friend's body that his energy spiked from sheer emotion. Although it wasn't a power-up like Science might receive in this situation, it was giving him a considerable adrenaline boost. You bastard! Tien snarled at Cold, but Cold was uncaring about Tien's rage, for he was no longer in his second form but had shifted to his final form. You are talking to me? Cold turned towards Tien and smiled. He wasn't afraid of these insects any longer. He was a prudent man, so before arriving here he made sure to transform all the way to his final form. Was he important to you? How pitiful. I would have left him a whole body if I had known. Cold smirked. His new design resembled Golden Frieza, but he was Snow White in color instead, very similar to Frieza's final form. The only thing that could be said about him was that he was obviously taller than Frieza ever was. Finding that Cold was still pushing his buttons, Tien was about to rush in with rage. Tien, wait. But Goku stopped Tien's charge in time. He too was angry, but Tien would definitely die if he went in there without his support. Tien stopped after hearing Goku's advice. Although he was really angry, he was still a smart man. Goku was right. Going and charging would only let Cold have his way with him. Yamcha and Kaiatsu were dead. Krillin and Piccolo were incapacitated after dealing with the Jinyu force. Piccolo especially was instrumental in dealing with Jinyu when Goku and Nappa were trying to hold Cold off. Kakarot, this guy is strong, Nappa said with sweat pouring down his cheek. He knew about Cold, but now he could sense how strong Cold was. That really puts things into a whole new perspective. He and Kakarot were the only ones remaining who could fight this guy. That Namekian was out of the game. Goku was no longer his cheerful self right now. His friends had been killed mercilessly in front of him. I know. We'll make it work somehow, said Goku with a serious face. He took his stance while Cold watched with interest. But his smiling face deformed right after when Goku's fist made contact with his cheek. Boom. Cold was caught off guard receiving Goku's attack. A Kaioken ×4 boosted attack on a 100k wasn't enough to hurt Cold at all, but he was still sent flying from the surprise attack. Goku smiled in a tense fashion after he realized how little his attack did. Go! Nappa rushed towards Cold as well after telling Tien to position himself, but sadly for them Cold wasn't Frieza. Shoo! Nappa looked down with wide eyes. There was a hole in his chest. What? He staggered down and fell face first onto the ground. His heart was pierced through a death beam. Nappa! Goku exclaimed with shock. His head snapped towards Cold, who was walking back with rage written on his face. Cold raised his fingers and they shone right away. Shoo! Flipping out of the way from sheer experience, Goku dodged the attack. His Kaioken saved him from getting death beamed through the heart. Shoo! 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 Cold continued to attack mercilessly and Goku continued to dodge the death beams fired his way. He was doing a variety of movements to stay as safe as possible. And King Cold had enough of Goku dodging his attacks. You vile monkey! Pointing his finger in the air, Cold started floating in the sky. A purple ball of energy was beginning to take shape above his fingers, and was it getting bigger by the second? Cold was creating a death ball to finish this whole charade once and for all. Frieza can see it coming and survive in the space just fine. You vile creatures have wasted enough of my time. Do you have any idea who I am? I am King Cold, the emperor of this universe. And you are from a third-rate planet, yet you dare to attack me. King Cold's death ball was getting bigger and bigger with his rage. Tien and Goku both knew something had to be done now. Tien was sweating from the sheer intensity of that attack, but then he gazed at Kaiotsu's dead body and calmed down all of a sudden. Goku, said Tien in a calm tone. Then he continued. Do your best to stop that attack. Leave cold to me. Goku looked at Tien, then realization dawned on him. Tien, don't do it. Shaking his head, Tien walked forward with a white aura enveloping his body. He didn't listen to Goku, but said his own thing. You will have one shot at this, Goku. Make sure it counts. Before Goku could stop Tien, he flew towards Cold with veins jutting out his whole body. And Cold himself only raised his other hand and pointed towards Tien. Shoo. Ugh. The death beam ran straight through Tien's torso, but instead of falling, he yelled out. Aya! White aura enveloping Tien flared to maximum capacity as he kept approach Cold with his fastest speed. Cold looked unimpressed and kept firing more death beams. Shoo. 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 Tien's hands, legs, ears, everything was shot open, but much to Cold's shock, he didn't stop. What? Cold exclaimed because Tien was now an arm's reach away from him. He couldn't understand how Tien had rushed all the way here even after so much. He should have collapsed midway long ago. Not bothering with anything, Tien had red blood vessels in his eyes. He had reached Cold and with the maximum strength he could muster. Bam! He tackled Cold into a four-armed hug, a hug which would have broken any other man's spine. Cold himself was only slightly pushed back from surprise. But Tien wasn't disappointed. He didn't expect this to do anything in the first place. His actual attack was something else entirely. This one's for Kaiotsu. Goku, do it. Then the world started glowing for King Cold. Tien started emitting blinding light as his whole body shone. Cold could barely make out that Saiyan rushing in with anger, but before he could do anything to stop him, he heard it. Shin. Kikaho. Tien and Kaiotsu had created a self-destruct technique for a rainy day. While they hoped they never had to do it, Tien was using his version right now. It changed all his body's energy into a Kikaho blast. This was the entirety of Tien's potential in one single blast. Everything from his body to ki was combusted as a focused, deadly attack. The energy had nowhere else to escape and was supposed to take down whatever Tien was holding on to. Boom. And if the massive yellow ball of energy that covered the skies was anything to go by, Tien's attack had worked. Bam. Goku had meanwhile done his part and kicked through the death ball using Kaioken, but his mood was extremely bad. Tien had self-destructed before him, Nappa was dead, Kaiotsu and Yamcha sacrificed themselves, Gohan and Piccolo were down for the count, and he couldn't do a thing. He was feeling incredibly angry at himself and his inability to fight. Tien. Dropping form the skies, Goku landed on the ground and looked at the yellow ball of energy slowly fading away. He was searching for King Cold's energy when suddenly, die! Cold flashed before him, with burns all over his skin and punched Goku straight in through the stomach. Gah! Goku wasn't thrown backwards from the punch this time around, because all that force had been taken in by his now absent stomach. His eyes widened, but he still gripped Cold's arm with his hands. Yuwak! Goku was visibly overexerting himself trying to push Cold away from him. His hands were gripping as hard as they could, but his lower body was now paralyzed. Cold smirked at Goku's futile efforts and raised his other hand. He pointed his finger straight at Goku's forehead. Goodbye, Saiyan. Goku's eyes went wide, his body flashed red, but Cold's hands were as stable as ever. Goku gritted his teeth, and then out of left field raised his head and chomp. You! Cold was both shocked and incredibly pissed. This vile monkey just bit his finger. He could feel the saliva on his skin, and that pushed him off the edge. Aya! Boom! Asterisk. Blasting away Goku using a large energy discharge. Cold looked at his finger dripping with some saliva and anger. Goku had meanwhile been thrown far away from the blast, and was lying on the ground. He was huffing and puffing with pain. Ha! Haha, I made it. Goku still managed to laugh as he attempted to get his upper body up. He was understanding what Raditz was talking about when he mentioned how it sucked to get a hole punched through you. This reminds me of that time with Piccolo. Laughing with pain, Goku tried to float upwards. He wasn't going to give up so easy. Thud. Goku's attention was taken in by the tail smash Cold did to the ground. The ground now had an extra crater and a very pissed off Cold, who now going to fire a considerably powered ki blast at Goku. He seems to be keeping his distance after getting saliva on his fingers, but this wasn't good news for Goku either. Kaioken. Gah. Goku tried to do the Kaioken, but immediately failed. He spat out blood. His injured body wasn't able to take the load of Kaioken. Come on, one more time. Just one more time. Goku exclaimed, but he was in deep trouble because Cold had already fired the energy ball towards him. Cold wasn't going to give this Saiyan any more chances. Chapter 70, Gohan. Cold's attack was rushing straight towards Goku, who was attempting to crawl away using his elbows and get out of the range. But the speed he had was simply not enough. His hands were also losing consciousness. So Goku did what Goku does best and used the situation to push his creativity. After bracing himself, Goku opened his mouth and started concentrating. Came. A small ball of blue Kamehameha was starting to form inside Goku's mouth. He was mimicking Raditz and Nappa's mouth blast for this, because his hands were trashed and his legs were paralyzed. Goku was using the only thing he could. Haim. His cheeks were beginning to bulge and blue light was shining from within them. After his cheeks puffed up completely like a squirrel, Goku looked at the blast funnily and opened his mouth wide. Ha! With Goku's shout, the Kamehameha wave was fired straight out of his mouth and rushed towards the purple energy ball. And began clashing with the thing, trying to push it back. Cold only smirked at the spectacle and thrusted his clawed hand forward, telekinetically pushing his attack forward, which overwhelmed Goku's almost immediately, but Goku used the sheer recoil of the clash to throw his injured body out of the way. Boom. Once again Cold missed Goku because of the latter's ingenuity. Goku was huffing and in a lot of pain but smiling nonetheless. He raised his head and looked at Cold with one eye closed, that I had been hit with a sharp rock and was currently bleeding. Ha ha ha. Goku was trying to get up one more time, and his repeated trials were somehow starting work. His hands were gaining a little bit of consciousness back, enough for him to raise himself slightly, but that was not helpful at all. He is strong, be careful. Out of nowhere Goku said with a half-tired laugh, and Cold was looking at him with a questioning face. Was this Saiyan telling him to be careful of himself? What are you babbling on about, Saiyan? Cold's words had only one answer. Boom. A yellow energy flash detonated above Cold's head instantly, covering the area in a hemisphere of pure energy. And the person who did that attack was flying in the sky with his tail coiled around his waist safely. Dad, are you all right? Exclaimed Gohan from above. He had picked himself off the ground, and one could see that clearly. Gohan's clothes were torn in multiple places. One of his hands was hanging limp on the side, but he was still standing. I will make it, son. What happened to Piccolo? Goku said as he collapsed down with relief. He was no longer trying to push himself off the ground because his son was here, and he had full confidence in his son's ability. Goku had seen the bursts of power Gohan had in the gravity chamber. Gohan had a potential so large that if Gohan used it now, they could beat King Cold instantly. Those flashing green eyes and that golden hair Gohan displayed once a while gave Goku a feeling even Raditz couldn't beat him in that state. Dad. Gohan had flown down and picked up Goku with concern. But he knew now they had more important things to discuss. Mr. Piccolo has woken up. He is talking to a group of Namekians. I came here after sensing your energy, Dad. Goku nodded with a tired smile. He asked about Piccolo and not Krillin because he could sense Piccolo was moving around and Krillin was likely still knocked out. But Goku felt Gohan had another thing to say. What is it, son? Gohan was a bit upset when remembering what went down a while ago, but being the polite kid he was, Gohan said lightly. The Namekians didn't come alone, Dad. They had me. I came with them. Do you have something to say about that, boy? An arrogant voice cut off Gohan's words and caused the father-son duo to look up. There stood Vegeta with a malicious smirk on his face. That's Vegeta, said Goku to himself. He had heard about Vegeta from his brother and Nappa, but this is the first time he was seeing him in person. Vegeta quickly landed beside him, and that caused Gohan to tense up, because Vegeta had already attacked Piccolo once before coming here. But Vegeta only snorted with his malicious smirk in place. If I wanted to do something to your pathetic dad, I would have done so, boy. But I no longer need to dirty my hands. Your dad is going to die by himself, it seems. Hearing that, Gohan stood up and snapped at Vegeta. No, Dad won't die. Snorting proudly, Vegeta ignored the foolish ramblings of the boy and turned towards the direction Gohan had fired his attack in, then began confidently walking towards Cold's energy signature. Cold was for some reason not moving from his place, because the thing is, although Cold wasn't dead yet, Gohan's burst of energy had hurt him a lot. Even Gohan didn't know, but his attack was powered by his raw latent potential. When Gohan found his dad was on the verge of death, he snapped. His hair had turned golden for a split second. But that was enough to cause some serious harm to Cold. This kind of potential explosion was a big factor in taking down the original Raditz as well. Gohan's potential bursts were one of the most deadly things in his arsenal. He went from 1 to 1300 plus against original Raditz, his potential boom against Cell, potential unlock against Bu, and then finally Beast Gohan. These were the most prominent display of Gohan's abilities. This time around, Cold was added to the list of people who were unfortunate enough to make Gohan mad. Whoosh. But Vegeta didn't know any of that. He only felt that Cold seemed hurt and was trying to recover, and Vegeta wouldn't give him the time to do that. Watching Vegeta leave, Goku looked serious and turned towards Gohan. Son, listen carefully. Gohan didn't know why his dad became serious all of a sudden, but went to support him nonetheless. He had grown a lot as a person and was far more confident than he ever was. These few months with his dad had done more for his confidence than his entire life up to now did. And one of the things he learned from his dad was courage and responsibility, just like Goku once refused to revive because everyone would be in danger due to him being there. Gohan adopted that sense of responsibility in himself too. If he could help in any way, he would do so to the best of his abilities, and from what he was hearing, his dad seems to have a plan that just might work. So, I am finally launching my own Patreon. You can support me at www.patreon.com/imaginemaker. I am currently setting it up and stockpiling chapters. The story will take a short break until that's done. Chapter 71, Zenkai Boost. Frieza's teeth rattled and the inside of his mouth tasted blood. Yet his supernatural durability allowed him to continue fighting. Snap. His neck received a swift kick which caused it to snap sideways and throw his body back from the whiplash alone. And Raditz, who just gave the harsh kick, landed on the ground and looked around with a frown. Nappa. His energy signature vanished. Damn it. Clenching his fist, Raditz calmed himself. Nappa was now dead and Goku's energy signature has been unstable for a while now. Meanwhile, another energy signature has been fluctuating wildly. Raditz could sense that was Gohan. Gohan. He's close. He might unlock it before any one of us can. Raditz mumbled, then turned to look at a particular direction and flew away. After his last attack on Frieza, he had a bit of time on hand, and he needed that time to fix something. Currently, there were two Namekians trying to make their way here. The duo will be in grave danger if they come, and he'll be unable to fight at his full capacity with them messing around. So Raditz decided to go and give them a warning. His last kick should leave Frieza on the ground for a bit, and Frieza can't sense energy. That'll give him enough time to get this done. Swish. Raditz suddenly appeared before the two Namekians. They were a boy and an older man. The duo were startled and fell back from shock, but realizing who was here, they exclaimed from happiness. Saiyan King. Bowed Din and Gyuri. Raditz gestured at them to rise, and with a frown he questioned them. Why are you here? I won't be able to protect you if Frieza targets you again. Leave, warned Raditz, but Din quickly walked up to Raditz and clenched his fists. Saiyan King, we are here to help. That man was not reliable. We decided to not tell him about your location, or he might have hurt you. So that's what it is. Rubbing his eyebrows, Raditz grumbled internally. So that was why Vegeta didn't come here and went directly towards Cold. Raditz was planning on taking a break when Vegeta arrives, but that was a bust now. Din, not knowing that, continued with his words, but he was a lot quicker now that he knew danger was still around. Saiyan King, you were hurt. I can heal you. That got Raditz to stop. Yes, was Din capable of healing? That was how Vegeta received his Zenkai boost in canon. This was good news. Folding his hands, Raditz sat down without hesitation and the gray faded from his eyes. This caused him to flinch due to the kickback he just received. But Din was smart enough to not waste time and raised his hands. A warmth spread across Raditz's body which greatly relaxed him. Man, that hits the spot. I was barely capable of sitting straight before this, thought Raditz. His body was slowly being repaired, and he was feeling a spike in energy with each passing second. This was a Zenkai boost, the thing that pushed Goku all the way up to 3 million in original, and if Raditz's feelings were correct, 6 million, that's what this boost will push me to. Understanding that, Raditz relaxed and let Din do his thing. After a while longer, his energy stabilized around 6 million. Din was done healing Raditz, who narrowed his eyes and stood up with his aura flaring to life. Frieza is searching for me again. He might get impatient and blow up the planet if he doesn't find me. Now run along, and thank you for your help. If you need anything from the Saiyans, do let me know. Whoosh. Flying away with his eyes shining yellow, Raditz smiled. This Zenkai boost not only increased his power, it also let his body adapt to a 10 times boosted Ikari. Now he was equal to final form Frieza, who didn't go super buff, or his 100% full power mode as he called it. We are both at 60 million. Now what will happen if one used Ultra Instinct and one didn't? Ikari boosted up to 10 was something that came to Raditz naturally now, so he was curious if he could use Ultra Instinct on top of that. After closing his eyes for a second, Raditz opened them again. His eyes were still yellow, but he was now in Ultra Instinct state. I can, and it's like I am not even using it. As soon as he turned Ultra Instinct on, Raditz's speed increased by multiple folds, and he arrived before the angry Frieza in a few seconds. Aff! And greeted him with a punch to the stomach that managed to make Frieza's eyes go white. His heart stopped beating immediately and his consciousness blanked out. But Frieza's insane durability kicked in once more and his consciousness returned right after, but that couldn't be said about the integrity of his body. AAA. Stumbling backwards with his face morphing into pure shock, Frieza held his stomach with pain. He wanted to tell Raditz how hard he was going to destroy him, but Frieza couldn't even stand still anymore. Bang! Falling down from the sky, Frieza crashed to the ground, where he kept spitting and tried to stabilize himself. He was in so much pain that even his durability was having a tough time keeping him straight. What's the matter, Frieza? Cat got your tongue? Frieza was done. He was no match for him anymore. Raditz was certain he could take Cold and Frieza together by now. Smiling with his hands folded, Raditz looked at Frieza, but then stopped right in his tracks. His head turned towards a direction with shock. Piccolo. His signature vanished. As if one cue, The Namek skies began to rumble, clouds were starting to gather, occasional bolts of lightning were forming in the sky, and the winds were almost beginning to form a typhoon. Both Raditz and Frieza had stopped fighting due to the crazy spectacle and were looking at that direction. Frieza knew something big was happening in Raditz. He could sense something else entirely. This was the birth of a legend. Someone has reached that state. Someone was close to becoming a Super Saiyan. Chapter 72, Super Saiyan. Gohan, you absolute mad lad. You went ahead, did it. Step. Raditz landed on the ground besides Frieza with a light sound. Smiling at the fallen Frieza, Raditz bent down and looked Frieza straight in the eye. Frieza, do you feel that? Do you know what that is? Snap. Grabbing the tail smack thrown his way, Raditz smiled and squeezed Frieza's tail hard enough for him to flinch. As if not even minding the attack, Raditz continued. That, Frieza, is the birth of a Super Saiyan. Frieza's eyes widened as if asking in shock, there is another? But he was so badly hurt he couldn't speak out right now. Raditz didn't mind the lack of response and continued with a smile. No, it's not what you think, Frieza. I am different from him. He's a Super Saiyan. Pointing towards himself, Raditz smirked. I am the legendary Super Saiyan. Ironic, isn't it, how alike we are, the born king of a species. The one standing above all. It's a shame we had to fight Frieza. I wouldn't have minded joining hands with you. Raditz's words had Frieza's grit his teeth and glare at Raditz. Die, monkey. Then out of nowhere, Frieza raised his hand and released a massive energy blast straight at Raditz's face, who before Frieza's shocked face, twisted his body in a smooth way and dodged the blast. How? Did you know? Frieza spoke in absolute terror. It was as if they had practiced this move before, as if this was just a performance to Raditz. This was supposed to be a sneak attack when the monkey was busy holding onto his tail, yet he moved as if Frieza was so easy to read. It infuriated Frieza. Boom. Receiving an elbow to the head, Frieza's spat blood as his purple armored skull caved in. Collapsing into the dirt once again, Frieza's veins popped. Unaware of Frieza's increasingly furious looks, Raditz towered over Frieza and spoke in a soft tone. Your attacks will never connect, Frieza. Your time is over, you dash. What? Raditz's eyes went wide. Frieza's palms, which were supporting the ground, began glowing dangerously. Frieza, who was looking down on the ground, had fury filling his face. His veins were bulging and his energy spiking. Go to hell, Saiyan. Godash. Frieza's stomach was immediately kicked. Raditz's hard Saiyan boots cracked Frieza's spine with only the distributed impact. With his eyes wide and mouth opening in pain, Frieza's body ragdolled into the air, and the gathering energy was released into the air. Boom. After skidding on the dirt ground for a while, Frieza came to a stop and stopped moving. He was now out cold. Raditz, meanwhile, wiped his sweat and thanked Rashi for his Ultra Instinct again. This technique is the bane of all sneak attacks. He almost pulled a golden freezer on me. Sheesh. Wiping away his sweat and nervousness, Raditz went to get Frieza. He could feel an intense battle taking place on another side of Namek right now, and he wanted to be there for it. Gohan had done it, and Raditz wanted to know how he had done it. I still can't get myself to transform. My hair hasn't turned yellow no matter what I try. Could this be the side effect of relying on Oozaru? Raditz wondered as he picked Frieza up by the throat and carried him on his shoulder like luggage. He was an Ultra Instinct and didn't worry about any sneak attacks, so carrying Frieza wasn't a problem. Frieza will meet his end before the Saiyans. Frieza might not be a problem anymore, but Super Saiyan. Tisich. Raditz had control over his Oozaru and had mastery over his ki, so Raditz could use Iakri in a calm and controlled fashion, but Broly triggered it via rage. Yet even with all that rage in him, Broly didn't transform even once. It was when he finally lost his father that something clicked inside him. Whoosh. Flying away with Frieza and Toe, Raditz wondered what was the reason behind this. Broly obviously had enough S-cells. He did go Super Saiyan right after Paragus' death. But even with all conditions technically fulfilled, he didn't transform, no matter how much he raged out in Akari. Great Ape and Super Saiyan might truly be opposite to each other. Gohan had trouble going Super Saiyan and he was born with a tail. Goten and Trunks could go Super Saiyan easily, but they lost their tails. Same for Universe 6 Saiyans. They evolved out of tails, be it Kaba, Caulifla, or Kale. Each had enough S-cells by default. Yet every Saiyan with a tail in Universe 7, be it Goku, Vegeta, Broly, or Gohan, had much harsher conditions to go Super Saiyan. Raditz was beginning to think the longer he relied on Akari, the more he was going to have trouble transforming. But Akari's boost is much higher than that of Super Saiyan. And I am born with a tail, so it won't matter much even if I get rid of it now. I'll only be making it hard for myself. Tail or no tail, as long as a Saiyan had one at birth, they'll have to work extra hard to go Super Saiyan. So Raditz decided he might as well concentrate on Akari until he figured out a way to go Super Saiyan. Boom. Narrowing his eyes, Raditz speeded up. The clash was close and he could feel a fiery aura boom with every attack. Gohan was going crazy and Raditz could even see it now. the yellow aura surrounding Gohan and the sheer power he was emitting. This was a transformation of epic proportions, and Gohan was the first one to unlock it after all these years. If not for Broly's existence, he might be the Saiyan with most potential. And after Gohan Beast, even that could be debated. Chapter 73, Deceit. You damn monkey. Boom, boom, boom. Cold panted and kept firing ki blasts at Gohan, who before his eyes kept swatting them all away like flies. Cold was sweating. How did this boy become so strong? Is he also a Super Saiyan? Gah! Cold eyes popped comically when Gohan vanished from his vision, and he received a kick straight to his chest, cracking his bones and rattling his internal organs inside his body. Now Cold was scared. He might really die here. Oh, wait, please wait. Backing away in the air, Cold waved his hands. He was begging Gohan to stop and was thinking of buying some time. But to his surprise, Gohan actually stopped and hesitated, which Cold caught with his years of experience and capitalized on it instantly. This boy was a fool. Wait, Saiyan. Please forgive me. I didn't mean to kill the Namekian. I swear it was an accident. Watching Gohan hesitate, the almost dead Vegeta was so angry that he raised himself off the ground using sheer anger. After spitting the blood clogging his windpipe, he began breathing hard and warned. Idiot. Kill him. Don't hesitate. He will not stop at anything to destroy you if you let go of him now. Huff huff. Kakarot, tell your son to finish him off. Vegeta turned towards Goku and asked him to knock some sense into his boy. But watching even Goku hesitate, Vegeta almost died from anger. Looking at Goku, who was now healed, well above his 50k, and was wondering if he should let Cold go, Vegeta barked. You absolute bouffons. Kill him. Vegeta punched the ground from pure rage. Vengeance was so close, yet these two fools were letting it slide straight out of their palms. Goku frowned from indecision, then turned towards Vegeta and said, if he comes back, we'll just beat him again. Gohan has become super strong. Spitting more blood clogging his throat, Vegeta berated the father-son in a harsh tone. He doesn't have to defeat you to win. Not everyone plays nice, Kakarot. Cold will destroy your planet when you aren't around. Cough. He'll kill your loved ones before your eyes. Huff. You wouldn't be able to do a thing. Vegeta was trembling while remembering the destruction of planet Vegeta. He felt like breaking down, remembering the wounds his pride has received all these years. What he wouldn't do to kill those two, and this boy was just letting him go. Kakarot too. All this while Cold remained quiet and kept a begging face. He was looking extra repenting. This caused Gohan to finally falter. Cold caught that and trembled. He spoke while slowly approaching Gohan. Thank you. Thank you, Gohan. I will always remember dash. Snap asterisk. Gohan's eyes went white with a sharp pain in the neck. Boom. And he crashed down at the ground, knocked out of his Super Saiyan state. Gohan. Goku screamed and instantly rushed towards Gohan, grabbing him and rolling away from the death beam, which would have killed him if it hit. Cold smirked, looking down on the ground. His death beam missed, but he had done it. He had done it. Hoo hoo hoo. Laughing lowly in a voice filled with excitement, Cold then started laughing loudly. Ha 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 ha. He did it. He defeated that Saiyan. Now all he has to do is kill these pathetic worms and take down the Saiyan King with Frieza. Ignoring the glaring Goku, whose hair was fluttering upwards for a bit now, Cold turned towards Vegeta. Oh Vegeta, you said so many hurtful things about me. Rushing towards Vegeta with a bloodthirsty smile, Cold screamed with fury. Die for your sins, monkey. Goku's eyes went wide. Cold moved too quickly for him to catch up while he was busy cradling Gohan. He couldn't stop him in time, even if he wanted to. But watching Cold do a flip mid-air and rushing towards another direction caused Goku's blood to run cold. Krillin! Get out of the way! Goku raised his hand involuntarily. He yelled with all his might, which made Cold smile successfully. Cold was a sly man. He knew the previous prince was already out of the game, but that remaining Saiyan, he was dangerous. He was not only the brother of the Saiyan King, he was also the father of that boy. So Cold did what he does best, catch the weakness of the enemy and defeat them with one swift attack. The monkey always deflected any stray ki blast going your way. Let's see you deflect this, monkey. Raising his foot, Cold threw a swift kick. His designation? Krillin's head. Cold. Don't do it. Stop. Goku yelled out with anguish and rage, but he couldn't take Cold even with Kaioken, and Cold was already ready to kill. He could only stare in rage as Cold's foot reached Krillin's head. Boom. Chapter 74, Cold's Demise. Goku yelled desperately, but Cold's foot had already reached Krillin's head and boom. A bloody body flew, but weirdly Goku didn't have rage on his face anymore. He only stared with wide open eyes. Brother. Because the body that went flying with blood splashing all over wasn't Krillin's. Boom. It was Cold's, who was kicked in the head by Raditz and was now currently resting in a newly formed crater, landing beside the unconscious Krillin, who didn't know he just survived certain death. Raditz turned towards Goku and nodded. Kakarot, how's Gohan? I sensed his aura flare up. Picking himself and Gohan up, Goku swiftly flew towards Raditz and Krillin. And while Goku came flying, Raditz looked at his surroundings and pursed his lips. The Namekians were lying dead and so was Piccolo. Piccolo's body was pierced multiple times. He looked like Cold took his time with him, but the rest of the Namekians had their share too. Burn holes were cauterized before Piccolo could regenerate from them. But even with that, the large gaping wound on his forehead must have been the finishing blow. So that's what made Gohan transform. Shaking his head internally at the Namekian's plight, Raditz turned towards Vegeta and raised his hand. Vegeta coughed once and began floating towards Raditz telekinetically. Goku carrying Gohan and the floating Vegeta reached Raditz one after the other. Goku laid Gohan besides Krillin and Raditz kept Vegeta besides Gohan. Gohan's become super strong but Cold lied and sneak attacked him. Told Goku with a frown. Raditz nodded and then spoke to the fallen Vegeta. Vegeta, you powered up quite a bit since the last time I saw you. Raditz. Looking towards another direction, Raditz didn't wait for Vegeta's reply and raised his hands again. A large body flew towards them telekinetically. It was Nappa's. Thump. Depositing the dead body of Nappa before him, Raditz looked at him with sadness. Nappa was the first person to follow him, yet he was unable to save him. Bending down, Raditz put his palm over Nappa's wide-open eyes and closed them softly. The last thing he wanted to see was Nappa's shocked face frozen forever. Now Nappa was finally lying peacefully, but Raditz felt many emotions. Nappa was gone, but he remained. Did Cold do this? Asked Raditz in a low voice, to which Goku nodded his head. Nobody here was in the mood to make small talk anymore, so everyone let Raditz mourn a bit for Nappa. Vegeta was dying to ask why Frieza was still on Raditz's shoulder and still breathing, but he didn't speak either. Raditz wasn't Kakarot. He knows who should be spared and who shouldn't. Vegeta didn't have any worries with Raditz taking the lead, because he might not like it, but when Raditz stopped hiding himself, he knew the man was a qualified king. Let's end this, Kakarot. Wake your son up, Vegeta, pick yourself up and act like the elite you are. It's time we finish off the father and son. Taking Frieza's unconscious body, Raditz raised his hand and threw Frieza like a ball. Frieza went flying through the sky and crashed straight beside Cold, who was attempting to pick himself off the ground. Boom. Frieza's landing in the crater caused Cold to flinch, thinking it was an attack, but his veins popped seeing it was his son. Damn. You. Cold gritted his teeth. Frieza had also started coughing. This fall had jolted him back to consciousness, and he was trying to get his bearings back. Raditz, was the first thing Frieza said as he picked himself up while growling through his clenched teeth. His eyes were bloodshot from the anger and humiliation he was feeling. Son. Although Cold didn't say anything, the tone of his voice let Frieza know. He was warning Frieza to cool his anger and was telling him to attack together. This was something they used to do when Frieza was young. It's been more than a century since he had to follow Cold to attack someone. This reminded him to his comparatively weaker days, which infuriated him. Nothing about this situation sat right with Frieza. How dare these monkeys do this to him? How dare these idiots raise their heads before him? And most of all, how dare you? Starting at Cold, Frieza put his palm before his father's shocked face and screamed with anger. How dare you order me around? Wait, Frieza dash. Boom. A massive pink energy wave atomized Cold's upper body, catching him off guard at Frieza's sudden attack. Frieza had powered up to his 100% full power right before this attack. He did this with sheer force of will, and his insane talent made it happen. That was just how much of a monster Frieza was. Meanwhile, the remaining Saiyans were deeply shocked at the display. Frieza killed Cold? Didn't expect that, but then again, it should have been obvious. Raditz mumbled. This made his work a hell of a lot easier at least. Vegeta began laughing and coughing at the spectacle and spat at Goku and the now conscious Gohan. Ha. Ha. He even killed his own father. Do you see it now, Kakarot? Goku frowned Frieza's actions but didn't speak out. He had already understood what Vegeta meant a while ago. But this scene hit Gohan really hard. He was young and never saw something this brutal happening. Killing one's father with their own hands is something that was foreign to Gohan. So much so that his hair turned yellow again, imagining Goku dying because of his failure a while before. Gohan had once more managed to trigger Super Saiyan using his rage. And now, due of his actions, Frieza needed to face both Raditz and Super Gohan together. But Frieza himself didn't seem to think so. It's all because of your filthy Saiyans. All because of you. Angrily, Frieza raged out, his energy cratering the earth he stood on. Although his situation seemed dire, he was Lord Frieza. He was the emperor of the universe. The Saiyans might be shaken from his act of cruelty, but it gave him relief. The stacks were against him? To hell with it. He was the one who made the rules, Lord Frieza, and he had just made a new rule. All Saiyans must die. Chapter 75, Super Gohan. Frieza's actions were harsh, but this was just how Frieza worked. After getting rid of Cold, he managed to calm his anger down, and was now staring at Raditz. Frieza's organs might have been torn and his bones might be shattered, but neither his species nor he himself knew when to quit. Picking himself off the ground, Frieza started to float in his buff form, his dense muscles keeping his shattered bones in place. Glaring at Raditz and Gohan, Frieza spat with resentment. Super Saiyan this, Super Saiyan that. I am sick of all you Saiyans. Rage overflowed from Frieza. He was in pain and was extremely upset over these monkeys jumping around before him. This planet, these monkeys, the Dragonballs, everything can go to hell. He might try to do something drastic again, thought Raditz. He had already stopped Frieza once from destroying Namek. He could do it again. The only reason Frieza was still alive was so he can meet his end before the Saiyans. Raditz could end him anytime, and so could Gohan. Frieza's actual threat was significantly lower to Raditz, so now the question arose, who should be the one to end Frieza? Raditz didn't mind doing it, but before he could suggest something, Gohan took initiative. Uncle Raditz, I want to defeat him. Gohan was shaken up and wasn't in a very good mood. He didn't master Super Saiyan, yet so anger was still predominant in his mind. Although Gohan would never hurt anyone, be it Cell or Frieza, he could at least defeat them until they can't fight anymore. After that, Raditz will take care of Frieza depending on the situation. Thinking that, Raditz waved his hand towards Gohan. Fine, you do that. Let's see how a Super Saiyan fights. Thank you, Uncle Raditz. Whoosh. Rushing towards Frieza, Gohan punched out, in response to which Frieza countered back. An angry buff Frieza was fighting a shining golden Gohan. Frieza was still going to get his fair share of golden PTSD, it seems. Boom, boom, boom. An intense battle was taking place. Super Gohan was a slightly stronger than Frieza at 100% full power, but Frieza was a genius, so the fight was pretty equal. It could tilt either way depending on how Gohan handled the situation, but Goku had faith in him. Vegeta had sat up by now and was panting while he watched the battle with clenched teeth. Raditz, what did you mean by Super Saiyan before? How can Kakarot's son be a Super Saiyan too? Boom. Af. Vegeta spat blood from the kick Raditz just delivered to his chest. Spitting more blood, Vegeta looked up with anger, but Raditz stared at him coldly. It's not Raditz, that's King for you, Vegeta. Do not make me repeat myself twice. If you have any problem with my status, fight me and take it back, but before that, act like you understand what you even want to take back. Clenching his teeth with anger, Vegeta glared at Raditz, but he finally didn't talk back. It wasn't that he had turned over a new leaf, but Raditz's words got to him. If he was incapable of following even the most basic Saiyan tradition, what kind of royalty did he even want to become? He'll take his birthright back from Raditz the Saiyan way. This was a matter of pride. Watching Vegeta keep mum, Raditz nodded to himself. Good. The prince had realized his current position. Good. Now that I have made myself clear, it's time to talk about that boy. He's indeed a Super Saiyan. Going into Akari, Raditz's eyes went yellow. Pointing towards his eyes, Raditz explained to Goku and Vegeta. I think that might be Super Saiyan. It's the same color as my eyes after all. And after watching the boy transform, I have some new conclusions. I think any Saiyan can go Super Saiyan. Vegeta almost gasped but held it in, and Raditz continued after letting that sink in, emphasizing his current transformation. But what you see here is a different kind of power. Unlike the boy, I can grow stronger endlessly. I do not even know where my limit is at, if I even have one. As far as I can understand, my only limit is my control. Shutting down Akari, Raditz's hair dropped down and he breathed out. Meanwhile, his message had shocked Goku and shaken Vegeta. Dopping his head down for a bit, Vegeta then slowly raised it back. So that's it, getting endlessly stronger. The difference between a legendary Super Saiyan and regular Saiyan. Vegeta was currently trying to comprehend the sheer gap between Raditz and him. Even if Raditz was right and he achieved Super Saiyan the way that boy did, he was still no match for Raditz. The yellow eyes form of him had no known limits. Knowing that Vegeta had received a big hit to his ego, he didn't know what to do anymore. So, that means I can do what Gohan did? Oh boy, that's neat. Goku had a totally different mentality from the collapsed Vegeta. He showed a drastically different outlook to the same scenario, which made Raditz smile. This was why Goku could rise up from a mere single-digit power level to his current 3 million. He simply had a way of looking into things which inspired confidence. And it did inspire confidence. Vegeta's eyes shook, and he seems to have found his way again. His collapsed body had found a new support and straightened itself back. Raditz took all that into account and smiled at Goku. You can, Kakarot. I think all of us can. I wonder how Gohan did it. It'll be good if he can transform at will. Goku nodded with a proud smile of his own. Yeah, Gohan seemed to be having trouble going Super Saiyan on his own, but it's nothing he can't handle. His faith on his son's ability was obvious to all, and Raditz agreed with it. Gohan was much more stable-headed compared to before. He would surely get the hang of it. And when he does, Raditz would follow along and understand how he should go about triggering Super Saiyan himself. But for now, boom, there was a fight to watch. A fight that was of great importance to every Saiyan alive.